Hey, in the immortal words of Judy Brown, happiness is a choice. We're happy you're spending some time with us, Chip and Zay, right here on the Midday, Texas Sports Unfiltered. Please like and subscribe to the Texas Sports Unfiltered YouTube channel. It's how we grow. And please take note of all these incredible sponsors around our faces. Audiovisual Consultations, Sleep Cycle Center, Covered Bee Cave, Altstadt Brewery, Leaf Landscape and Supply, Covered 3, Olipop, the healthy soda. I love it because I'm kind of addicted to carbonation, so I need healthy soda. Hey, McCall Custom Homes, Woods Comfort Systems, 34 Wine and Spirits, send text tickets. Zay, how you doing, my man?
Not too shabby, man. Happy Tuesday, everybody. A lot to talk about, a lot going on in the sports world, and a little chaos outside the sports world, and gonna get all into that and Chip and Zay. How you doing, my friend?
I'm good. We had a chance to talk to Sark. We'll get to that in a minute, but what is the chaos you speak of?
There's certain sports media personalities almost getting got, certain former Hall of Fame tight end, now turned media personality. It's in a pickle, to say the least. It's in a pickle, to say the least.
More audio from his bedroom?
A lot to do with stuff like that, He's
Shannon, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, he's got a lot going on. But
it's good to be Shannon Sharp, I guess.
I don't know about all that. But maybe not right now.
Maybe not right now.
Maybe not right now.
All right, we'll get to that. Like I said, we had a chance to talk to Steve Sarkisian today. So got 2 practices left of spring football.
By the way, Sark looked tired before we get into this. He looked tired because, again, newborn baby. Usually you're a little worn out because the newborn sleep time is crazy. You're up changing diapers at 3 a.m. and stuff, even though I'm sure Sark's down there at the 40 acres by 5 a.m. or something like that, like a lot of these good coaches do. But still, did he look just tired, bags under the eyes, anything that little baby Sarkisian could be, feeding off on him right now?
Amias. Right?
Yeah, sounds right.
Yeah. Well, he sounded okay.
Okay.
He sounded good to me.
All right. Top of the line nanny, I'm sure. Top of the line.
Only the best.
We're talking 5-star All-American nanny. I'm sure they have taken care of a lot of things that normal parents would have to deal with.
If he can land the top tight end out of the transfer portal, he can find a nanny, right?
Yeah.
But the thing I liked that I heard was Arch Manning's had a great spring. They're pushing him harder to be a leader and to be a vocal leader, to do all the little nitty-gritty leader things. And I think with the additions that they've just added to the portal, out of the portal, with Emmitt, Mosley, and Jack Endries, the number 1 tight end out of the portal. And we'll talk to Chris Hummer about that coming up. We'll talk to Hank South coming up here in about 10 minutes of Horns 24/7, who's been all over the portal news. And I think this is an offense that's coming around. Steve Sarkisian said, look, we're a work in progress. And when you have to replace 4 offensive line starters, you got to replace Matt Golden, you got to replace Gunnar Helm, you got to replace Jaden Blue. It's going to be a work in progress, but I think they're moving in the right direction, and they're going to need all of summer workouts and fall camp to get where they need to be by August 30th. But they got the talent, Zay.
Yeah, they definitely have the talent. I mean, think about this transfer portal and all these guys that kind of flying under the radar. I know that Jack Injuries was the number 1 rated tight end during this portal cycle, but still, like, that dude, when you follow in the footsteps of a JT Sanders, then Gunnar Helm, like, that's a lot to put on the guy that was a former walk-on. Now, again, Steve Sarkisian and his coaching staff, they do a hell of a job of finding guys that fit what their philosophy is and what they like to bring to the table, X's and O's wise. Like, they've proven that. So I'm not going to go against them here. But Emmitt Mosley the fifth, you could consider him as underrated a little bit. Like Travis Shaw, he hasn't really, lived up to that 5-star ranking that he had coming out of high school once he went to go play for Matt Brown at Chapel Hill. Again, we talk about Cole Brevard. The dude went 1-11 at Purdue. So I'm sure he's eager to be in a winning program and a winning style culture. So, yeah, like, this transfer portal is very underrated. We think about Arch Manning and just that leadership aspect. Like, again, certain guys do it in different ways. Like, you got to kind of have that balance where, hey, I'm going to hold you accountable. I might have to chew you out every once in a while, but also, hey, man, let me take y'all out for dinner and let me show y'all a good time, and we can have fun and kick back and not necessarily talk about football. We heard Neil Brown's helping them with that. Neil Brown coming from West Virginia as a head coach. Like, those are certain things that he could bring to the table, and I'm glad that Arch has paid attention to that and added that to his game. Like, that's what all these coaches on the freaking sideline are for. Like, they all should bring a little something different. So, yeah, I'm not worried about Arch's leadership qualities. Like, he just has it, about him. Like, he's a fun guy, but also he has a serious part about him. And that's what you need as a quarterback. That's what his uncles were. That's what his grandfather was. And he has a lot of that in him too. So I'm sure there's certain things that Steve Sarkisian and AJ Milwee need to clean up because no quarterback's perfect, but they're moving in the right direction,
Yeah.
and that's what you want at this time of the year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It's different. It's last year. You were much more of a complete product at the end of spring. You had guys already on campus who'd done it. You had Matt Golden going through spring ball. This time around, you're going to be adding Emmitt Mosley and Jack Endries in the summer. So they're going to have to use that time to get on the same page with Arch Manning in this offense. Thought it was interesting. Steve Sarkisian said Emmitt Mosley was a guy they recruited out of high school. And Mosley had a knee injury going into his senior year, and Texas backed off. But Mosley got himself in great condition, had a big-time freshman season at Stanford, and when Andrew Luck fired the coach and he decided to look around, he was familiar with Steve Sarkisian, had a good relationship with him already. Sarkisian said, we knew the parents, had a good relationship, and Emmitt Mosley's like, oh, I'm good enough for you now, huh? I'm Emmitt Mosley the fifth, the 1, 2, 3, 4, fifth. So let's go. And I like this kid. I like him. I like that he's did all that in his freshman year. Caught 48 balls, 525 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 of them on 4th down. Guy's a pressure player and got 3 years of eligibility remaining. So I think those are 2 big ads for sure, along with my man Cole Brevard, and of course, Zay's favorite, Mason Shipley.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, Mason Shipley, Stats don't lie. He was doing it down there in San Marcos. 31 for 35. That's a solid percentage. But I said yesterday, when the lights are bright, show me what you're working with now, Mason, because it's different. It's different kicking in that little stadium they got down there in Texas State campus, and then kicking that DKR, packed house, top 10 matchup, going to Athens, kicking against Georgia, going to Florida, kicking in Gainesville. Are you about that life? Because Bert Auburn didn't like the SEC very much. Big 12, Bert Auburn, nice with it, confident, hair flowing in the wind, smiling, living large. But once Texas went in the SEC, where, quote unquote, everything means more, Bert felt that pressure. It creeped up on Bert, got you in the back, creeped up on you like a horror movie. That pressure was different. Bert's like, oh, these kicks, they mean different. It's a different vibe here. I don't know, Coach. Steve Sarkisian trying to give him pep talks and stuff. It was a cute moment. Bert goes out there, smokes the kick. And again, Bert Auburn was a solid kicker before that. So that's Mason's a solid kicker too. You're going to have to prove Mason, which again, it ain't even his job yet. Will Stone, he got something to say about that. Will Stone already got Bert Auburn's bags packed. Now it's time to battle with Mason Shipley. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure Jeff Banks is going to put them through the ringer. And we'll see who's kicking the first field goal in Columbus that August 30th. But yes, I feel good about this transfer portal, to what our original conversation was about. Like going to Emmitt Mosley the fifth, like dude from Chicago, like that's a different type of toughness down there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I like that. Like, don't let the smart brother Stanford act fool you. Like, the dude could play some ball, and the 3 years of eligibility, that's important to me too. Like, we only had Matthew Golden for 1 year. You only had Adonai Mitchell for 1 year. You wish you had them for all 4 years, but that's just how the transfer portal goes. So the fact that you get Emmitt Mosley the fifth for 3 more years, that's huge. And again, who said the job's his either? Same thing, like Emmitt Mosley, okay, everybody's thinking you just going to be thrown into that first group spot. Parker Livingstone might have something to say about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what we heard. Parker Livingstone doing his thing, making plays, him and Arch. Chemistry. So Parker Livingstone, that's a light, that's a fire lit on the ass, Parker Livingstone. Oh, they bring this guy in for what? DeAndre and Ryan's supposed to get back. They're supposed to be healthy. Who's this?
Who this?
Coach Jackson. Hey, come here. Who this? Oh, that's Emmitt Mosley the fifth. We bringing them to help the ball. Okay. I want to help the program too. We're a team here. But everybody got that competitive streak. That dude's coming to take your job, Parker Livingstone. What you gonna do about it?
Nothing.
Oh, see, that's what Parker Livingstone wants.
I'm Emmitt Mosley, the 1, 2, 3, 4.
White chocolate, yeah, that's what my man Contravian Weiser.
No, I'm just messing. Look, Parker Livingstone, that dude is spicy. 6'4", trying to break through. It's been getting a lot of run with the ones with Wingo and DeAndre Moore out. And Emmitt Mosley, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th, not getting here until
he's doing that Chappelle skit.
June.
That Chappelle?
Yeah. I love it. I've never seen a guy who's the 5th. Love that. I guess George Foreman, he had 13 Georges. Didn't he name all his sons George?
I don't know. I mean, he could afford them the way that he was slinging them grills. So
yeah. Sark had some interesting things to say. You know what I'm saying? He said, he was asked about if you think you're going to get Jonah Williams back. And Sark said, I hope so.
Back. What the hell does that mean? Get him back.
It was Kirk Bowles. He was just messing, being dry sarcasm. He's like, I hope so. He's playing like Juan Soto right now.
Juan Soto.
All right, let's bring in our man, Hank South. He is the managing editor of Horns 24/7, the MVP. He knows a little bit about everything. Hank, what's going on, man?
Not much. How are you guys doing?
Good. Sark said Jonah Williams, someone jokingly asked, "You're going to get him back for football?" And he said, "I hope so. He's playing like Juan Soto right now." And Sark played baseball. Sark knows about it. He was a dual sport guy.
At BYU?
Yeah, man.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or maybe it was JUCO before he got to BYU, but he was a baseball guy while he played football. Maybe it was the first 2 years before he got to BYU. But Hank, you covered Jonah Williams in recruiting. This guy, his older brother Nick, played in the big leagues.
Yeah.
With he's from a baseball family.
Yeah.
But this guy he's a freak. He is an unbelievable athlete. Your thoughts on Jonah Williams?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think he was if I remember right, he was the number one freak on the 24/7 Sports Freaks list last year. But yeah, I mean, there was a time covering his recruitment where it was like, okay, well, you might get him in football, but he's probably just going to get drafted to go to the pros out of high school in baseball. And then that conversation kind of shifted a little bit more last summer. The plan was he wanted to play both at the next level. He intended on doing that wherever he went. And the draft stuff kind of calmed down a little bit. But yeah, I mean, that was a wild recruitment. This time last year, I want to say, mid to late April, everyone thought he was going to Oklahoma. What's up, man? And then everyone, a couple of months later, everyone thought he was going to Oregon. Then Texas A&M had, a grip on his recruitment, but it was Texas that kind of just stayed consistent. And then after Schloss got hired in June, immediately called Jonah Williams. That was like my first thought. And, I asked him how that impacted things. And he said, it was great. He was a big fan of him. And, obviously he wasn't going to give too much away about his recruitment, but I checked with the source after that and they still felt like, he was going to go to A&M or LSU even before he would go to Texas, even with Schloss. But, as time went on, Texas, Blake Gideon, who's now at Georgia Tech, he kept chipping away at Jonah. Nick, his older brother, I think lives in Austin. So that helped kind of with the travel, the proximity, being from Galveston. And then he got in for that July weekend at the pool party, the recruiting Texas Bash pool party last July. He came in with his family. He met football coaches. He met with Schloss, I believe, that weekend in person. And, from that point on, there really started to be a sense of optimism. Texas, did whatever they needed to do to kind of pull ahead in that one. And then he committed about a month later. So, it really was a wild recruitment. And he's doing exactly, kind of what we thought he was going to do. So now, he's living up to the hype in baseball, obviously, with what he did last weekend. So we'll see. Can he live up to the hype in football? I would bet yes. And I'm excited to see. I know your story, talking to him, he wants to return kicks. He can pretty much do anything on the football field. So it'll be fun to see what he can do this fall. I saw someone joke he needs to recreate the Bo Jackson photo with the shoulder pads and the baseball bat. We'll see. I guess he has to play football first. We've got to see what he does on the football field before. But I think he's going to be pretty good there too.
Yeah, we told him he needs to watch that Deion Sanders 30 for 30 where he's playing football and baseball in Atlanta back in the early 90s. And he's like, yeah, I'll check it out. But it's crazy. He's 17.
Yeah.
Because he is a grown man.
Yeah. He's nuts. He went to the Under Armour Houston camp last year, and I don't have the stats. I think we talked about this a couple weeks ago, but he was like, some kids, they're great. They have their offers. They don't really need to go prove anything. But he came to the Under Armour Houston camp, just decided he would test and do everything, and like tested off the charts. Like they don't do those Spark scores, or maybe they do, but they don't show them anymore. But I think he ran like a 4.4 laser. and did all, the vertical, all that stuff, and was just, casual, like he's just the best athlete there. And he's showing it so far in his college career.
Yeah, Hank, because that's what I'm the most shocked about. Like, you're the number one team in the nation, this Texas baseball team. And obviously the Max Blue injury has played a part in Jonah Williams getting opportunities. But I didn't expect him to come in with what he did last week. And again, he's going to go on the slump. It's baseball. It's just a part of the game. But I wasn't expecting him to be a factor on this baseball team at all. Yeah. And to hear all these things about him, like, I knew the hype was there, but not this fast, I guess. Because, again, who knows what would have happened if the collarbone injury wasn't even a thing either. So that's what I'm the most shocked about. Like, he's comes in, gets a start, and then against a top 10 team in the country in Auburn is a factor. Like, it's been very impressive, and I've been shocked to see it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, and you got to remember, like, he should be he's a high school senior right now. Like, he should be playing high school baseball right now, but he's playing college baseball on the number one team in the SEC, the most competitive conference in baseball. So yeah, you see these dual sport athletes, and kids say they want to play both sports, and then they give it a try. You'll see it with basketball sometimes. I covered Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold. They both wanted to play basketball at Alabama. They quickly realized, like, hey, I think football is a pretty good future for both of us. We're going to stick with that. But Jonah Williams seems like he's a guy that can legitimately have a future in baseball and football if that all translates to the next level. So yeah, he's a really exciting player. I'm excited to see once he does. Obviously excited to see him the rest of this baseball season. Assuming he's going to continue contributing with Blue being out. But once he does switch over to football, it'll be exciting to see him in fall camp and see when he can really start contributing to the team.
Yeah, he's playing tonight.
Yep.
Again against Texas State.
What's the record now? It's they win in San Marcos, lose in Austin. Like, what? It's like 4 games in a row, right?
Yeah, it's crazy. Let's see if they've got the notes in it. But yeah, it's been reverse. Let's see here. I guess maybe they don't have it in their notes. Well, looks like it's going to be Grayson Saunier tonight, starting against Austin Eaton. But yeah, that's wild. And he wants to return kicks and punts.
Yeah.
And I'm not holding any. I'm here for it. I don't doubt anything about this kid, because as y'all just said, I mean, he gets his start, 3 RBI in his first ever college start, and then goes 5 of 7 in 2 games. I mean, and bunted his way on without the coaches asking him to bunt. 3 other singles and a walk. He was outstanding. I can't. He makes it must watch too. Yeah. In addition to the rest of this team, Kimball Schuessler is on fire, whatever. But Hank, I want to ask you about your thoughts on the latest additions in the transfer portal for Texas. Emmitt Mosley, the 5th, and Jack Endries, the tight end from Cal. Let's start with those 2.
Yeah. So I got a text real quick. Making sure we're not missing any news.
If you need to bounce, you can always.
No, we're good. We're good. Yeah, Emmitt Mosley, I think that's, if needing a receiver in this spring window, with the depth a little light there, they're like, Sark said, they weren't where they needed to be scholarship wise, and for him to be available, and I don't think there's been another receiver that has entered the portal that has matched, or that can really match him. So like, they went out and got a legit starting type wide receiver in Emmitt Mosley. He was banged up the last or the first month of this past season. So, his stats aren't like, you're not going to like be blown away, but I mean, he broke the Stanford true freshman record for receptions, and I want to say touchdowns as well. He broke 2 records as a true freshman at Stanford. He ended the season on like a hot streak. He had like 350 something yards in the last 5 games. Just a sure-handed option, a guy that's going to play opposite Ryan Wingo. You got DeAndre Moore in the slot. I think this is a huge pickup, and not just for this season, but going forward to the point where like they might not need to go in the portal next year for a wide receiver, assuming they could have portal losses. So yeah, or DeAndre Moore could go pro, I guess. But it's going to kind of shore up things for the next foreseeable future at the wide receiver position, because you have these 3 guys going into 2026. You got Parker Livingstone, and then the younger guys that are coming in or coming up. So you have a lot of experience built in there with a lot of young talent. So I think Emmitt Mosley's huge. I think he's gonna be a starter week 1 for Texas personally. And it was a big time get. And then like to follow that up with Jack Injuries, like from Cal, that kid is an NFL tight end, like or future NFL tight end. He is a legitimate, high caliber player at the tight end position, a guy that can block, can really catch the ball, can do everything they want their tight ends to do in the Texas offense. So to get him, and again, they're going to have Spencer Shannon, Jordan Washington. Those guys are going to contribute too. But to have that kind of presence in Jack Injuries, a guy that I want to say he played 800 and something snaps as a true freshman. He's a former walk-on too. So the year he came on, he played like 860 snaps, I think, which was the most snaps a tight end took according to PFF in 2023. So he had got a ton of playing experience. He had good stats this past year. He had 2 touchdown catches, but still, and I think he had a good amount of yards receiving. But I think he's going to be, we can look back at that one and be like, that was their biggest portal get last year, to give Arch Manning a little bit more insurance on guys to throw to. So 2 major gets on offense, and then obviously what they're doing on defense as well is good.
Well, you said the freshman records for Emmitt Mosley the 5th, most receptions 48, most receiving touchdowns 6 by a true freshman receiver at Stanford, and the most receiving yards by a freshman since Richard Sherman.
Okay.
Had 581 receiving yards back in 2006. So
is that Richard Sherman of Legion of Boom?
Yeah.
I didn't know he played receiver.
Yeah, how about that? Started off as a receiver there on the farm. Go ahead, Zay.
Yeah, Hank, just going back to Jack Injuries and Emmitt Mosley the 5th. So you're thinking that they're going to be starters from day one? Because I don't know what we've been hearing about Parker Livingstone. That dude's been playing some really good football in the spring. And again, Emmitt Mosley, very high on him. But we know Sark likes using 4 wide receivers, 3 main ones, and another one that he could kind of rotate in. Do you think Livingstone's going to fall into that 4th rotation receiver, or do you think that him and Mosley are really going to battle it out for that starting spot before the Ohio State game?
Yeah, I think they're going to battle it out. I don't want to sell Parker Livingstone short. Like, he could, I think it's going to go into fall camp. Obviously, he's not even on the team yet. Like, he has to join the team with summer workouts and everything. Sark did note that, like, it's a pretty difficult offense to learn in that, like, Matthew Golden didn't really blossom fully until later in the season. He was still learning everything week 1, and I think he caught a touchdown pass against Colorado State, if I remember correctly. So, yeah, I mean, I think Parker, has maybe a leg up in the fact that he's been in the system for a couple of years now. So maybe that'll help him in this battle, but still think he's going to play. I think, they're all going to have roles. I think Mosley, I think he's kind of like the perfect opposite guy you want from Ryan Wingo, just from what I've seen from him and, from talking to people that are, familiar with all this stuff. So, it'll be interesting. It's a good problem to have. It's like last year when we were like, how are they going to get all these receivers the ball? And then by the end of the year, they were having to use Silas Bolden, not having to. Silas Bolden's a good player, but like you had all these receivers, and then you're kind of dwindled down in the end with the injuries with Bond and Moore and Jonte Cook leaving the program. So, the more the merrier, you can have in this kind of title window they're in right now.
Yeah. I thought they should have used Silas Bolden more.
Yeah, I agree.
But Hank, anything else on the football recruiting?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing this week is Murad Watson, the Syracuse defensive lineman. So, they've taken this, maybe question mark at defensive line this year, and they've really attacked it in the portal. Like, they're going all in on the defensive line. Like, they got 3 guys in the winter window. They got one more, obviously, in Leavon Johnson from Maryland this past weekend. And it looks like they're in line to get Murad Watson, too, who was a 24/7 Sports freshman All-American at Syracuse this past year. He started 11 games as a true freshman. Obviously, Syracuse had a pretty good season. I think they ended the year like 21 and beat Washington State in the Holiday Bowl, which he had like 5 tackles in that game. So he's a big-time player. He's in Austin today. As we've seen with most of these guys, if they can get him in to visit, they usually commit for the most part. I can't think of many transfers that have visited that didn't commit. Max Clare, the tight end from Purdue, did. He went to Ohio State. Eric Singleton. And then maybe I think that lineman from USC. Those are the only 3 guys I can think of this window or this transfer portal cycle and all that have visited and not committed. So Texas is pretty good about getting these guys in and getting it done. So, I think Murad Watson's one to watch. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. But New Jersey native, big kid, really versatile, which, we've seen with Leavon Johnson, guys that can play all across the defensive line, and obviously had a productive freshman season, and a guy that you can get a few years out of too, if it works out well. So that's the big one this week. And then this weekend, obviously with the fan day, Texas is going to have one more kind of hoorah with big visitors weekends with several kids coming in, for unofficial visits, whether it's, Justice Fitzpatrick. I should mention him. He's supposed to be on campus today, a 4-star cornerback. And if that name sounds familiar, he's Minka Fitzpatrick's little brother. So if you want to talk about some legacy stuff there, then you got Trenton Henderson, a 4-star edge rusher, Rodney Cleveland, a huge defensive lineman from Alabama. They have a lot of out-of-state kids coming in. So it should be a pretty solid weekend. Obviously there's not a, spring game to watch, but they're still going to kind of use that atmosphere to couple with the recruiting environment and get guys excited ahead of official visit season.
Talk about Leavon Johnson a little bit, Hank, coming in from Maryland. Stats don't wow you, but it adds depth to that defensive line room. Obviously, you got Harold Canoe, Travis Shaw, Cole Brevard, then the guys that are already there. But they clearly are still looking to add guys in the interior line position. Talk about Leavon Johnson a little bit.
Yeah, I think just the biggest thing with him is, and Eric Henry wrote up a good story on him, kind of what he brings to the defensive line is like, it's just mass, 6'2", 311 pounds. Texas loves those 300-pound plus guys down there in the trenches. And, like the stats, you're not always needing to rack up stats at that position. You kind of have a role to fill, and, he can fill several different roles, whether it's, defensive tackle, nose tackle, a jumbo defensive end. So I think that's what Texas really likes about him. He's had a productive time, at Maryland. I think his season high last year was 4 tackles against Iowa and 36 snaps. So he plays his role, and I think that's what Texas likes about him. So I think they got a good one in him. And again, another guy that enters the portal, gets on campus, they get him to sign. Like they're really good at getting these transfers in and getting them to commit. So that's why I think I think we should see probably something from Murad Watson here pretty soon. I would, if he does leave and doesn't commit, you can't totally write it off, but it seems like they're pretty good about getting these guys on board.
Yeah, it's impressive. And the other thing too, Hank, is it feels like, Emmitt Mosley, they're getting a guy. It's not going to break the NIL bank. Jack Endry's a former walk-on. Even though he's put up good numbers, not breaking the NIL bank. Texas just seems to be doing a really good job of finding guys who fit without having to break the NIL bank, like OU spent $1.5 million on Dominic Williams and he's played well, but Texas isn't spending $1.5 million on any of these guys.
And that's like, not to compare Steve Sarkisian to Nick Saban, but like with Alabama, kind of the beginning of the NIL era, like there were kids going to Alabama at a discount, and the same can be said about Georgia with Kirby Smart, because they saw a window where they can go in and, play in the SEC, probably play for a national championship, win a national championship. I think kids are seeing that with Texas, the opportunity to come in and play with Arch Manning. Like that's going to boost your NFL stock. Like, yeah, you're going to still get paid, but, maybe make a little bit less and catch passes from Arch Manning and showcase your skill set and then go be the first wide receiver taken in the draft like Matthew Golden's about to be. I think that's a huge selling point, and kids take notice of that. It's not like these massive paydays. Like there's NIL there, but there's also a chance to go do something special and also boost your NFL draft stock at the same time. And, and Austin's like I think they'll be at an advantage, Texas and programs like USC or even Georgia or, Miami, these schools, like if this house settlement stuff, whatever is decided and there's this revenue share, it's like, yeah, there's going to be a cap on football NIL spending, but that's not going to cap, what kids can go make in the NIL market on their own name. That's just from the collective or from the school, that's paying them out. So I think Texas will still be at an advantage there just with the opportunities that are in Austin, whether it's, Lamborghini, Volkswagen, whatever these guys NIL deals they're signing, there's stuff there. Sorry, my dogs are constantly barking in the background.
Hey man,
I can't escape this chaos in my own home. So
our dogs are constantly jumping on the show. So we welcome dogs on this show.
Okay. Very dog friendly show. Absolutely.
They're outside, but they're out barking at the door. So
hey,
go ahead, Zay.
Appreciate it. I saw Diabell. Did he move up in the rankings? I saw he's like top 5.
Yeah, I think On 3 made him like let me see what he went up in On 3's rankings. Let me see. Let's see what he's at. I want to say they have him as the number 2 quarterback. Yeah, they put him at number 4 overall in the country, number 2 quarterback. So that should boost his composite ranking pretty good. Let's see if that's already gone into effect.
So he's good. Like he's good to go for this upcoming season.
Oh yeah, he's been healthy. Like the injury he had, they thought it was a lot worse when it first happened, and it wasn't. He had to do some rehab and stuff, but he's already. I mean, he's been in the summer or the spring camp circuits, throwing it around, like running around. He's fine. So that's good news. So yeah, he'll be good to go for his senior season. But yeah, the composite. Yeah, number 12. He's a 5-star in the composite now. Number 12 overall in the country. So number 1 player in the state of Florida.
Hank, basketball recruiting, and my man Zay loves it when Sean Miller is looking at international players.
Yeah.
But Evan Boaz,
look at that pronunciation.
From France, 21.6 points, 4.8 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 3.2 steals per game. But he's also being recruited by Florida.
Yeah. Yeah. So he's in the mix. I talked to him last night. He said he's talked to Sean Miller, Adam Cohen, and 2 other coaches on the Texas staff. So this seems like an all-out push to get him. They're working on setting up a visit for him. And he's supposed to have a Zoom call with Florida tomorrow. So this looks like it's probably, and he's like exploring the college route. The international stuff, I'm not sure exactly how it works and like what they can do and what they can't do, or, eligibility, all that stuff. I would assume it's normal like anybody else. But Sean Miller said in his opening press conference, recruiting is going to be a mixture of elite high school talent, transfer portal, and international. And, he has a pretty good track record of international guys from his time at Arizona. And so, it seems like that would be kind of the perfect fit, but you have to take into account the fact that Florida's coming off a national championship. Their guard plays insanely good. So, I'm sure he'll consider that pretty seriously as well. So this could be a big time SEC battle, but yeah, like 3 spots left, I guess, with, scholarship wise, if there's 15 scholarship, that's another thing. But, if we're doing 13, there's 3 spots left. I was told last week, there were some guys Texas was after, like Kennard Davis and and a few other guys. But I was told they kind of hit the brakes a little bit or being a little bit patient. So, this you can pronounce it better than I can. Bazur. Bazur. So, yeah, I think he's kind of the first guy that's kind of popped up in the last, 5 or 6 days in terms of, push they're making. So I would imagine they'll get him on campus here. But yeah, hey, a French point or, a French guard, might reminds you of Tony Parker a little bit,
All right, let's relax. Hey, come on, hey. Come on.
Hey.
That's a lot.
Hey,
no pressure, kid.
Yeah, no pressure, right?
no pressure, kid.
Yeah.
Hey, talk to me a little bit about Shelton Henderson, who decommitted from Duke. He's a Texas kid, 5-star, 2025 class. I know that John Lucas was one of his big recruiters when he was at Duke, and now he's at Miami, so I'm sure they're in the mix a little bit. But
is Ja Lucas related to Ja Rule?
Nah, he's related to John Lucas, former Rockets player.
Okay, it's Jay Lucas.
Oh, it's Jay Lucas. Excuse me.
I got you.
I went to school with him. He was at UT when I was there, I think.
Yeah.
He actually. So Henderson actually signed with Miami. I don't know how.
He already signed?
Yeah, he signed yesterday. We were told, and when I wrote about it, it's like the common thought was that, he was going to follow Jay Lucas to Miami. He recruited him to Duke, made sense. But we were told Texas was trying to get in the mix there, or was getting in the mix there. And he had past relationships with Texas. He took an official visit last year. He knew Rodney Terry and his staff. So, obviously there was some getting to know him. So who knows how close it was, maybe he was going to Miami all along, but I heard Texas was at least very interested in trying to get him. He's going to Miami though. So Shelton Henderson is not going to happen. So yeah, it's kind of, bummer for Texas, but they'll have to use it somewhere else.
Hank, great stuff, man. Anything else at the top of your notebook that you think is important?
I don't think so. Recruiting, we got draft this week, so that'll be good to see how that happens or unfolds. Big baseball this weekend, fan day. So busy last week of spring, and then before you know it, it's official visit season and kind of all chaos starts up again. Yeah,
that's right.
And the season.
Well, everybody needs to get over to horns247.com. Keep up with all the latest because the recruiting scene is moving. Hank, appreciate you, man. Let's do it again next week.
No problem. Thanks, guys.
Appreciate you, Hank.
There he is, Hank South, making it happen for horns247.com. The guy is unbelievable. He's got like 6 things going on at once. Love Hank.
Yep, one of the best.
Evan Boisdil. I mean, we got Lacina Traore from the Ivory Coast. Can they land Boisdil, who averaged 21.6 points per game? And I don't know how soft that league is he's playing in, but
who knows what league it is.
But clearly, if Florida's on him, Texas is on the right guy.
Yeah.
Because real quick, we'll get. There's more football that I want to get to, and we got Hummer. You know what? We'll get back to Evan Boisdil in a minute. Let's bring in Hummer. Hole-in-one Hummer, we call him. Hole-in-one Hummer. Man, scored his first hole-in-one this year. There he is. Hummer, how you doing?
What's up? I mean, this is why I keep coming back, guys. You're going to introduce me like that. The vibes are good.
Hell yeah. Hole-in-one Hummer, baby. Listen, we celebrate the victories around here. We don't forget about them. Celebrate.
Not many of those in my golf game historically, so I appreciate it.
That's right. Jack's got it right. It's Big Daddy Hummer.
Big Daddy Hummer.
It's a off the rails Tuesday. Every day's off the rails on this show. But Hummer, I need you are the portal guru, and Texas How would you describe Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns in the portal? The last couple years.
I think the word that comes to mind is surgical. Not necessarily because they get every guy they want, but they seem to have an ability to target a player, to fill a need, and to move on that guy quickly. I think you can see that in several circumstances this cycle. Jack Endress was that way. He went in the portal, was almost immediately bound for Texas. Mason Shipley, unfortunately not of the other Shipley family, but he went in the portal and was bound for Texas right away. Not every situation was like that. Emmitt Mosley was not like that, but like Murad Watson, who's currently on campus right now, like I think Texas has a really good shot at getting. I think they've been on that for a minute. So I don't think you're seeing them sign 15 or 20 guys because they don't have to. The roster is good enough to the point where they don't have to do that. But if they have a need, we've seen this staff move aggressively to go fill it. And they haven't gotten over their skis with money either, which I think is something not every other school can say.
Yeah. How you said Emmitt Mosley the fifth, it was not just instantaneous. How did that one go down?
I mean, he was in the portal for a little bit. He had a few other schools he was considering, but I think Texas, when they decided to make a push, made a push, and it was pretty quick from there, based on my understanding. So, I mean, we all know that Texas hosted another receiver earlier in the cycle, two other receivers, technically, they were in the mix for. Didn't get either, and I think this cycle was shaping up to be a really bad one in the spring for like high quality receivers. And I think Texas saw a guy in Emmitt Mosley they could add that has multiple years available, could help the team, and they went ahead and made the move.
Hummer, which one of the new coaches on this Texas staff do you think, I guess, has the biggest shoes to fill? From Mark Orfe coming in as a secondary coach, DeWayne Akina, you bring in Chad Scott as a running backs coach to fill in for Tashard Choice from West Virginia. They got Alan Clark as an edge rusher coach. Like, which one of these coaches has the biggest shoes to fill from the previous coaching staff on the 2024 team?
Well, I mean, I don't think DeWayne Akina ever needs to worry about filling somebody's shoes in Austin necessarily. So I'd start there. Coach Ofri is a pretty well-decorated guy. And obviously the secondary he took over was stewarded quite well previously. But I mean, I think the answer is pretty clearly Chad Scott, just because of what Tashard Choice did with that running back room the last couple of years. I mean, conservatively, what has Texas had? Like 4 NFL backs under Tashard Choice? Like, get drafted or get recruited. And the way the running back room held up last year, frankly, without like half the bodies it was supposed to have in the preseason, was very impressive. And I think he's one of the best running back coaches in the country. He recruited that way for Texas for a couple of years. And I think that is definitely like the hardest person's role to fill, at least right away. And I think you could probably argue running backs are the most replaceable. Like the running back coach sometimes it's just a pure recruiter or whatever, but Tashard Choice clearly showed an ability to go out and recruit at an elite level and also develop at an elite level. And that's a really hard combination to find.
You like Chad Scott, though?
Yeah, really, really good hire. I think he did a great job at West Virginia. Guy like Jaheim White, he got out of Philadelphia, who really outplayed his kind of recruiting ranking out of high school. He developed quite a few impact players during his time at West Virginia. I mean, West Virginia's other starter, technically at running back, is now at Ohio State. That speaks to the level of player he developed in that room at West Virginia. And his reputation is like a really strong one in the industry too. So I think it was a really strong hire by Texas. Certainly a veteran hire. Chad Scott's been around a long time.
And Jaheim White, is he staying at West Virginia?
I believe that's kind of what sources have indicated to me. Like, I'll never say never, like stuff can change, but going into the transfer portal cycle, I'd expect him to stay put.
What do we got? 3 more days?
Feels like 3 more lifetimes, but yeah, three more days. Then it's closed. But it's not even technically closed until Sunday because schools have 48 hours to submit a player's name once they enter. And really, it might even be through the Tuesday because it's technically 48 business hours. Some schools take it as. So could see names trickle in for a little bit longer.
All right, Hummer, we got to get your take on the Nico situation, Nico Iavao. If I'm Nico, I tell my dad, I tell whoever the hell else is repping me, okay, you're done. I'm in charge now, but that's my take on it. What's your take on how this whole thing played out?
I think it's a couple things. One, I think this is just, I mean, it's the oldest like stereotype in football, right? Quarterback dads. Like, I think this is very much a quarterback dad situation in a way. I think rising salaries in college athletics makes every single quarterback or player think like, why aren't I making that? I think that has a lot to do with it too. There were historic NIL contracts offered to quarterbacks this offseason. John Mateer, Darian Mensah, Carson Beck, all over $3 million a year. I think if you're Nico Iavao and you're coming off a college football playoff appearance for Tennessee, you're probably thinking like, why aren't I making that? And his camp's probably thinking that. So that factored into it. And you don't tend to be rational about yourself. Like I look at Nico and I think like, oh, probably a first round pick in a year, but was probably a middle of the road SEC quarterback this year in terms of production. He probably doesn't see himself that way. So I think it's that. And I just think I think the big takeaway is like for a long time, schools have been pushed and pushed and pushed and they'll cave to their star players. Texas has had certainly some of those situations over the years. I can think of several with Xavier Worthy alone. But at a certain point, like when the dollars are getting as high as they are, and we now enter an era where there's like a soft salary cap, essentially, like schools are going to stand up for themselves a little more often. And I think that's what we saw Tennessee do. So I think it's just a messy situation in which there were really, frankly, no winners, but certainly an entertaining couple weeks in college football.
Yeah. What's John Mateer making, over $3 million?
Yeah. I don't know the exact number, but I was told at the time it was a little over 3. Yeah. North Carolina, when they were recruiting him, offered him what was termed to me a record-setting deal. And that was at a point where like the numbers that already ballooned over $3 million for players like John Mateer.
Is North Carolina? I mean, they're throwing around some big money. Like they thought they had the Leavon Johnson kid.
Yeah, they did. That was an interesting reporting process.
Yeah. What's your take on how that went down? Because there were reports, not by us, but others who were like, Leavon Johnson's going to North Carolina.
How do I comment on another person's work? I think that sometimes that a school can feel really good, and something looks like it's going to happen, but it's not done until it does happen, is the way I would put that. So I think that was one of the situations where North Carolina thought it was in really good position. You can even sign paperwork for 2 schools in some cases, which can happen. But until that paperwork is processed and submitted, a kid is not locked into their school. And even if that does happen, the kid can ask out of it. And Texas felt like they were in really good position during that whole process and obviously ended up finishing ahead for it.
How is spring camp going in Chapel Hill, Homer? Because all I see with Bill Belichick is his girlfriend and different videos and stuff. She's on the field, wearing her iced out jacket and stuff like that. And I don't know, to where she might be a distraction. Clearly, Bill thinks that she's, beneficial to what's going on down there in North Carolina. But what are you hearing on what's going on in Chapel Hill with camp?
Well, I mean, sorry.
No, we know you're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, I think it's been a pretty solid spring camp for them. I think Bill Belichick's system and Steve Belichick's system, I suppose, is pretty demanding, and they're learning to kind of work through a non-professional athlete learning their system which is complicated, and there's a lot of that to go around. And I think, as you see with a lot of new staffs, like sometimes you don't mix with the people you had before. And we've seen some of North Carolina's better defensive players enter the portal, but we've also seen North Carolina be super aggressive in trying to replace some of them as well. So it's like, I don't know, it's a learning phase for them. And I think it's a learning phase for the staff, their personnel staff that has never really been on this level before. There's just a lot of things that are being learned over there this spring, I would say.
Hummer, what's your level of faith in this DeOte and Touch, monitoring? I mean, right now the proposed plan is for DeOte and Touch to sort of oversee this clearinghouse, and every NIL contract over $600 needs to go through the clearinghouse, and then DeOte and Touch are going to decide what's a reasonable, fair market deal. And if North Carolina is offering $3 million for John Mateer, and I mean, what the hell is going to be deemed a fair market deal? Does it have to be within a certain dollar amount of other deals, the average of deals at that? I mean, what are we doing here? Do you have any idea?
Well, I mean, I have about as much faith in that as I do in like losing 10 pounds before the summer, right? Like, I think I can do it. I think it might work, but is it going to happen? Probably not. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I mean, maybe this is the year where like I get in the gym and really make it work and I stop eating ice cream, but like, you never know. And maybe this is the time when the NCAA's enforcement like steps up and like holds water. But like, it's just like, it's a system in which like athletes are not employees, like technically. And as we've seen, like the boundaries have been pushed in the courts over and over and over again. And the first time somebody's like NIL deal is limited in terms of fair market value and a player's upset about it, they're going to sue. Like, it's just going to be the reality. And then the courts will determine what fair market value is. And the recent success rate for the NCAA in court is not particularly high. So I don't have a ton of faith that'll work. Like, some people in the sport are optimistic. And we'll see how that goes. But I just think there's say a cottage industry out there is probably putting it lightly, but there's a whole industry out there, a whole legal industry that has made their livings and their careers off of essentially dunking on the NCAA over and over again. And I don't see any reason that would change in the new system. So unless like something pops up with fair market value that they can defend in court in a way that I'm not understanding, which is entirely possible because I'm not a lawyer and definitely not smart enough to understand all of it, I think there are going to be challenges very quickly.
Hummer, with the NFL draft coming up this week, what are you looking forward to? Or do you think there's going to be any surprises or any players that might be getting picked higher than you would expected or vice versa?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Tyler Shuck's going to go pretty early. That's the guy I've got.
How about that? How many schools he played for, Hummer?
Just 3. He was at Oregon, Texas Tech, and Louisville. But he was Justin Herbert's backup for 2 years, if I remember correctly. So he's been around a while. I don't know. I don't know if I'm like locked into draft stuff right now with the portal going on. I talked to Cam Ward yesterday for a story I'm running on Thursday, so I'm excited about that. I think he'll go number 1, but I don't think that's a surprise. But yeah, I'll be curious. I think I'm most curious who wide receiver 1 ends up being, to be honest. I think Matthew Golden has like an outside shot to be that person, so that'll be interesting. And I kind of wonder if the Cowboys will be in the mix to be the first team taking receiver.
I know. It's crazy.
What's Cam Ward's personality like, Hummer? Like, I've seen him. He's kind of very confident, brother. But, again, you don't really know until, you see someone, they hit adversity and stuff. But he had a good career at Miami this last year. Going to go number 1. What'd you get from interviewing him?
I mean, I've known Cam for a long time. I remember covering him when he first transferred from Incarnate Word, and he's like I don't think that heart rate rises much for him. I think he's somebody that's always been really confident in himself, even when the offers weren't there, and they obviously weren't there out of high school. And I think he's a dude that like is going to step into a locker room right away and be a leader. I think he's just one of those people that people tend to follow. I wouldn't say cocky, he's just confident in himself and doesn't really say a ton, but I think that's perfectly willing to talk a little shit if it comes down to it.
Did you see the Ewers Gruden QB school?
No, I have not had a chance to watch
Yeah.
any John Gruden QB school. What happened?
Oh, I think Ewers did well. You know, Gruden was throwing a lot at him, and Ewers was able to process it all and spit it back to him. So
doesn't surprise me. Quinn's always been really gifted on that side of things, and Steve Sarkisian's prepared him well. I think the only questions I have about Quinn are, is he going to ever stay healthy, and
right,
can he ever figure out the deep ball more consistently? But,
well, and I think the health thing is what's holding him back more than anything.
Oh, 100%.
It'll just be interesting.
He hasn't been fully healthy his entire career, right? Like,
yeah,
3 seasons, 3 injuries. Yeah, he was hurt in high school, so. But he's as talented as anybody. I mean, I don't think he's ever reached the heights we expected. But like, if you're just talking about pure physical talent in this draft, it's him, Shuck, and Ward for my money in terms of the 3 most gifted throwers in the draft class. So if he's healthy, like I don't know why a team wouldn't. If I was like the Rams, I'd be thrilled to take Quinn Ewers in the 2nd or 3rd round if I could. I don't know if he'll last that long or whatever. I don't really know what that looks like, but we'll see.
What is it with Shuck, Hummer? Like, why is he boosting up in the draft stock right now? Because his age, he's old as hell. He's basically freaking 30. So, like, what is it? Because you just talked about his release and stuff, but there has to be more to that.
Well, I mean, he's just always been a guy that's had like elite physical tools. If you stand, I don't know if you've ever stood next to him. He's gigantic. Like he is built like a prototypical NFL quarterback, but I don't remember what he ran in the 40, but I bet it was sub 4.7. If I had to guess off the top of my head, like he's a really good athlete. He moves really well in the pocket for somebody his size. Like, I'm not saying he's like Josh Allen. Very few people are the NFL MVP, but like he is a physical stature that's like comparable to that. He doesn't move quite as well, but he's like an above average mover. I would say he moves better than Quinn Ewers does, to be frank. And he's got just as strong of an arm. He's a really experienced guy. I think he's a safe long-term backup and with a ton of starter upside. And like he's played a lot of college ball. He's been in 3 different systems. He's had to learn 3 different systems, including Jeff Brom's system, which is really complicated. And I think he's a guy who could step in right away in the NFL and be competitive. And I think that's what NFL teams like about him in a class where there's really no certainty at the top in terms of high-end ceilings. Like I don't think anybody would tell you like physically that like Cam Ward is that much more gifted than Tyler Shuck. Like, to be honest, like they're pretty comparable. Like Tyler's a upper tier NFL, like physical tool set kind of guy. So I think teams really like that. But just like with Quinn, like the question mark is injuries because he's been hurt his entire career.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so who has spent the most money in the portal, would you say, Hummer?
During the spring or like overall?
Yeah, I guess let's just say this spring and then we'll say this 2025 cycle, fall and spring.
Oh, wait. Tyler Shuck was a 4.6 guy with a 1.61 split and a 32-inch jump. Yeah, that's an athlete right there. But sorry, I had to look that up. Who spent the most money? That's a great question. I mean, Miami probably spent the most money overall, given what they gave back in the rest of their class in the winter, and they're continuing to spend now. But it's hard to say who spent the most money overall because like you're also talking about retention, and retention is just as expensive as leaving. But like, I mean, Miami's the first team that comes to mind overall this spring. That's a good question. I would have to think about that one a little bit more,
Okay.
to be honest. A lot of teams have spent a lot of money, but it hasn't. Oh, actually, I take that back. Texas Tech has spent more money than anybody.
I was
Texas Tech.
I was wondering if that was the case because they have the number one class in the portal. So wondered if Cody Campbell been, dipping into his pockets a little extra.
Yeah. Now system governor Cody Campbell, which is interesting. But yeah, no, Texas Tech has definitely spent the most money in the portal. And I don't think they spent the most money in the spring because they've only signed one player, but they spent a lot of money to get that one player. So I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Speaking of Tech, Hummer, I've been hearing Micah Hudson might be going back to Lubbock. That's very interesting, knowing that he left there, committed to A&M, had a cup of coffee, and then got out of College Station. So what's the word on the Micah Hudson situation?
Sorry, 1 second. I think Micah Hudson is likely to end up back at Texas Tech. That's something that Matt Zenitz and I highlighted the minute he went back into the portal, like a week or 2 weeks ago, whenever that was. Like, that was always a strong option. He was supposed to visit Utah. That never happened. And I think those in Lubbock feel pretty good about where Micah sits. But Micah's an interesting guy, and you never quite know what direction that's going to go. But I think if I put a crystal ball pick in for him, it would be for Texas Tech in the moment for sure.
So Cody Campbell, you said assistant governor, or you mean his being appointed chair of the Texas Tech Board of Regents?
I thought he was chair of the system. Am I?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean,
yeah. I didn't realize it was. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But yes, he recently got a new title, which is pretty interesting.
Yeah. So now the guy with all the cash is in a very, very powerful position to preside over the system that presides over his beloved Texas Tech University.
Yeah, he's made a lot of contributions to Texas Tech recently, so that's an interesting hiring by them, for sure.
I always wonder what these guys' wives think about all the money they're throwing at football and softball and basketball players. But
well, I mean, we all have our hobbies. They just vary in terms of price. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think what me spending $150 for a round of golf is to Cody Campbell is probably like spending a couple $1 million on the roster, to be honest, given his bankroll. Also, it's all tax deductible at the end of the day.
Okay, it is?
Well, I think so, largely. Donations to the university are for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, that was always the question. Can we get NIL under the purview of donations to the university, like for facility upgrades and all that stuff? Hummer, what you've been doing so much. What's been your favorite story of the week?
I mean, I've only reported on transfers this week.
You got a favorite transfer story?
I think there's this kid that came from Army. His name is Elo Mendoza. He committed to Georgia. He was a wide receiver at Army up 3 years ago when he got to campus, and then he went to the coaches himself and asked him to move to edge. They told him no at first. They wanted him at receiver, and then he persisted, and he ended up being like the best edge rusher in the American last year. Now he's going to Georgia. So his career is quite interesting, but I don't know. I think at CBS we had some good stuff on Nico's situation as well. But
yeah, for sure.
Just a lot of news recently, not a lot of storytelling or anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tennessee's getting UCLA's quarterback, huh? Aguilar. Like, what does that mean? Like, how does that fit for Josh Heupel and them?
It means the trade's complete. You know what I mean? Like, no, I don't know if compensation will be named later, like some draft picks or something, but it's done. I think Joey Aguilar is an interesting guy. He's like, I think is what they needed, which is a veteran quarterback who didn't cost as much as Nico. Can step in right away and challenge the arms in the room and also provide somewhat of a high ceiling. And Joey Aguilar is somebody with a cannon for an arm. He can move around really well. He fits in Josh Heupel's system, that veer and shoot that like Baylor used to run under Art Briles. And is he as good as Nico? No, but is he going to be easier to deal with and cheaper? Yeah. So like, I don't know if Tennessee necessarily won as a result of getting Joey Aguilar, but like their headaches are a lot less. So he'll be a good fit for them for a year. And then they have the number 1 recruit in the country coming in the 2026 class, Faison Brandon, who is the future of the program and the way Nico once was for them as well.
You know anything about Emmitt Mosley's little brother, who's apparently a highly touted?
Yeah, he's committed to USC, right?
Yeah.
That's all I know about him, if that's what you're wondering.
Okay.
I don't know anything about his future necessarily, but
All right.
yeah, highly touted receiver committed to USC at the moment.
Hummer, you're the man. Hole in one, Hummer. We appreciate you, man. We know you're going 100 miles an hour.
Yeah, of course. Happy to. Sorry, I don't mean to be so distracted, guys. Just trying to get some.
No, man, you're doing it. You're making it happen right in front of our eyeballs. Yeah. Hey, we appreciate it. Can we do it again next week?
Yeah, for sure, guys. Talk then.
All right. Appreciate you, Hummer.
Thanks, Hummer. Chris Hummer, hole in one Hummer. That's good stuff, man. It's good stuff. Follow him on Twitter because he and Matt Zenitz of 24/7 Sports break almost all the portal news. So Chris _ Hummer on the social media, and Matt Zenitz. Those dudes are hounds when it comes to the transfer portal. I like to say they're the best. You know what I'm saying? All right, let's get a couple mentions in here right now on a Off the Rails Tuesday, like audiovisual consultations. Our man Tom McKay makes it so easy. So when you're ready for the big screen of your dreams, a full-blown new media room, surround sound, surveillance, electronic shades, new lighting, all of that. You just have to make one phone call and you get it all. And take it from me, Tom has put, big screens in 3 different houses for me. They're the best. They are, all about the details. I thought I needed a 100-inch screen for this, for my TV room. He's like, no, that wall's, you need 85-inch. I'm like, okay. So he's going to tell you what you need, what you don't need. He's looking out for you. He's a fun guy to work with. And all you got to do is call 255-8678. 255-8678. avconsultations.com is the website. Give him a call when you're ready for the big screen of your dreams. And for my guys who are snoring, the Sleep Cycle Center. Love our guy, Dr. Chad, who started the Sleep Cycle Center because his father passed away at the age of 60 from sleep apnea, not getting enough oxygen while you sleep. This is a serious issue. And if you're a person who snores a lot, you need to take advantage of this incredible offer that Dr. Chad has going at Sleep Cycle Center. You go to sleepcyclecenters.com and set up an appointment. They've got a questionnaire there too, so that you understand what's going on here. That's worth filling out if you're a person who snores. And what you do is you sign up, tell them Texas Sports Unfiltered sent you. They're going to take $100 off your sleep study, and you're going to get all the information you need. And that's the key. And then they've got different treatment options. They've got oral appliances like I have, which holds your lower jaw open while you sleep so that the oxygen flows smoothly, because without that, I call it a mouth guard. Without my mouth guard in, my lower jaw will slip back and it's harder to get that oxygen. You're not getting a true full night's sleep. You're not getting that deep REM sleep. So you wake up tired. You're gasping for air. It's just not a good situation. So if you're snoring and it's annoying to the person next to you, it could be a sign of a much bigger health issue. Go to sleepcyclecenters.com. They got locations in Lakeway and in the Arboretum. And let Dr. Chad tell you what's going on with you, give you the treatment options, so that you are the person you want to be. That's what it's all about. And Cover 3. How about a great meal tonight at Cover 3? Lunch, brunch on the weekends. Great vibe, great place to hang out with your friends. And of course, a great place to watch your favorite team. So Cover 3. I mean, the Chop House Burger, Texas Monthly calls it one of the best in the state of Texas. The Sean Adams Prime Rib Sandwich. I need y'all to go check that out. The Parmesan fries. I love the buffalo chicken sliders. Love that ruby trout with the pancetta and the vinaigrette. I always ask for a little extra pancetta. The ribeye tacos. I mean, the food is off the charts. Check it out. Anderson, Cover 3 Anderson, Cover 3 Round Rock, and Cover 2 at 183 in Lake Creek. All right, Zay. So I think our man Patrick Davis put some audio from Sark in here for us to check out. And so someone asked him about Kelvin Banks. Someone's saying Kelvin Banks might be a better fit as a guard than a tackle.
Oh my God.
Here's what Steve Sarkisian had to say about that.
I don't get it.
I was going to say, does that surprise you? I don't get it. So you say it's a prototypical.
What you guys got to know, right? Everybody plays coy when it comes to the draft. And a lot of times we'll leak things to you guys thinking that this is what they're going to do or not do to try to get somebody else to do something differently because they have an idea of what they're trying to do. Sometimes that's the benefit of a player of ours. Sometimes that might hurt a player of ours. But there's so many tactics that go into the draft. And I only know this when I was a really young coach. I was 29 years old, and I was coaching quarterbacks for the Oakland Raiders. And we had an owner by the name of Al Davis. And we used to sit in these draft meetings, and at the end of the meeting, he would always stand up and say, you know, what stays in here stays in here. You know, it's like it's only our lives. And when you think of it from that perspective, for the owners, the GMs, the head coaches, man, they're trying to do everything strategically to get that one player, man, that they've got highlighted on their board. Can we get this guy at 16, right? And how do we manipulate this board to get this player to be there at 16? Maybe we have to draft up. Maybe we have to trade back. You know, maybe we have to get another team to think we're going to take another player, so they take him at 15 so we can get the player we want at 16. And so there's so much strategy involved in it that I try not to listen too much to what's just said and watch the draft unfold. But as it pertains to Kelvin Banks, as I've told everybody, I think this guy is a premier tackle in the NFL. He's got the right physical measurables. He's got the right mental makeup. He's reliable. You can count on him. He's there every day. He's emotionally stable, which you have to be at tackle in the NFL. You got to play every play like this. You can't ride an emotional roller coaster. So, again, whoever gets him is going to get a guy that's probably going to play 10, 12 years in the NFL, knock on wood, barring injury, and have a great career. Yeah, I don't get it.
There you go. Leave him a tackle. He's going to play 10 or 12 years in the league. What more do you want? I would take him over that Will Campbell kid out of LSU. I thought Kelvin Banks had a better college career than Will Campbell. I don't quite understand. I could be wrong, but.
Yeah, is this because, again, Sark's right. Like, there's a lot of strategy that goes into the draft process where somebody might have leaked something on purpose just to get folks talking in a negative way so Kelvin Banks could become a steal. Like, that is very much a thing. And I wouldn't be surprised because, come on, you look at Kelvin Banks, tackle, that's what you see. Hell, even right tackle, that makes more sense. But guard, nah, not so much. And you can't base some of his games this past season because he played hurt through a part of the season. So I get it. Like, okay, maybe some of his work this season compared to the other 2 years, he struggled a little bit. But I also think Quinn Ewers had a lot to do with it, with his lack of mobility in the pocket and not getting the ball off or moving around at the right time. But yeah, the Kelvin Banks thing, it's still weird, but I'm sure somebody might have put that out so Kelvin could fall to them later in the draft and he becomes the steal of the draft.
Right. Yeah. This is what they call lying season. I mean, it really is.
City, somebody said Kansas City leaked that info. The Chiefs. Like, I wouldn't put it past them.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. They want Longhorns to fall to them. Like,
and it sucks because you're screwing over the player in a way. Like, the player's going to make less money, but it's hey, you want them on your team. So if you could get them for a quote unquote a bargain, then that franchise wins, even though the player might not. Like, that's what sucks about it. You want the player to make as much money as they can without somebody bashing them so we can fall later into the draft. But it's a cold game, and some play it in a cold way.
My favorite player in this draft is Ashton Genty.
Is it really?
Yep. I've been watching film on this guy, his contact balance, his hands. I think he's going to be incredibly productive pro. And I think someone's going to take him in the top 10. I think he's that good. And it's going to be fun to see where he lands. Because you're hearing, the Raiders, the Bears, if he gets that far.
Okay, so now that you just said that, you just laid it out there. Your favorite player in this draft, Ashton Genty, running back, Boise State. If you had the chance to choose, you being a Lions fan and all, would you choose Ashton Genty over Jahmyr Gibbs? Both of those guys, let's say both of those guys coming out of the draft. Both of those guys coming out of the draft, Jahmyr Gibbs, Alabama, played for Tashard Choice at Georgia Tech. Lions are on the board. Both of those guys in the draft, Genty, Gibbs. Who would you feel comfortable with the Lions taking?
I'm keeping Jahmyr Gibbs because I've seen what he's done and I see how he fits. And so I'll keep Jahmyr Gibbs in this draft. Ashton Genty's my favorite player. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not sold on these quarterbacks, man. I mean,
I'm definitely not.
I heard an analyst say today that if Michael Penix was coming out this year, he'd be the number one quarterback drafted. And last year he was, the fifth quarterback taken. So, but Genty, I think there are very few holes in his game. And I love the way he's put together. He's got calves, hams, and ass. He's got great lower body strength. He's got great contact balance, like Bijan. He's hard to get down. One guy, it's rare that one guy gets him down. He's got a great spin move. He makes guys miss from point blank range. And I'm very intrigued to see where he lands because, you look at the top of the first round, you got Tennessee, Cleveland, New York, the Patriots, the Jaguars, And the word is if he's still there at 6, the Raiders are going to take him. Those first 5 teams are not in good shape. They're not run well. They're not teams you want to play for. I mean, and Steve Sarkisian talked about that today. He's like, everyone wants to be picked high because it's a ego thing, and I'm better than everyone else in this draft, but it's about fit, especially for a guy like Quinn Ewers, because Quinn Ewers needs to go to the right team. And I've said on this show, it'd be amazing if he went to the Rams because he'd be behind Matt Stafford. He'd be with a really, incredible offensive-minded coach in Sean McVay. And it's a nice place to play football, SoFi Stadium. The comfy confines of SoFi Stadium. Now, I don't know how long Sean McVay is going to coach. Hell, he threatened to retire after winning the Super Bowl. But that looks like a pretty good fit for Quinn Ewers. Get behind an aging quarterback in a good system where players like playing for the Rams. Looks like the Chargers are going back to San Diego.
What?
Or was that an April Fool's deal?
I mean, it's been like 20-something days since April Fool's, so I don't know about all that, but
They were talking about finally getting a stadium down there.
interesting.
But maybe that's not happening. But yeah, the fit is what it's all about. You got to have the fit. And we've seen, look at Mac Jones. He goes, they're not going back. It looked like the city was trying to make it happen, but that's not happening. But you look at a guy like Mac Jones, he goes to the Patriots when Bill Belichick's losing his mind. Maybe this is when Belichick was starting to date that girl. And you
can't blame the girl for what happened down there in New England.
What else possessed him to make his defensive coordinator, Matt Patricia, into an offensive coordinator?
It can't be her. We're not putting that on her. That's unfair. Come on, I ride for Jordan Hudson, man.
I'm just throwing it out there. Bill was making some
incredibly
specious decisions there at the end of his time in New England, and people were like, "This guy's lost it."
We're not.
I don't know what's going on.
Hudson. I'm not going to let you blame Jordan Hudson. She's an angel.
Hey, what's your expectation for the Carolina Tar Heels in year 1 under Bill Belichick?
9-3. 9-3.
I'll take the under. Can we put that on a Post-it note?
Yeah, put that on a Post-it note. Hang that up.
UNC in 2025, UNC football. Zay, 9-3.
9-3. Hell yeah.
Yep. Under.
Jordan Hudson's going to lead them to at least one of them victories. I don't know what she's going to do. I don't know how she could do it, but I believe in her.
You ride for her.
I ride for her. She's in the Brittany Mahomes category.
That's another one. That's another one I don't understand.
Aisha Curry, Savannah James.
Horns 24/7, breaking news. Texas lands Murad Watson, defensive tackle.
Damn.
From Syracuse. This dude started 11 games as a freshman at defensive tackle. That's got my interest. Obviously Syracuse wasn't very good, but that's some valuable experience for Murad Watson. I'm just saying.
Good looking out, Fran Brown.
Huh?
Fran Brown, good looking out. He was the one that helped develop Murad Watson. Oh, Fred Brown, coach of the Syracuse Orange.
Well, hell, they were 9-3 last year.
And they weren't bad. Kyle McCord doing this thing. I'll take that.
10-3. Okay. 10-3, and Murad Watson started 11 games as a true freshman. Come on, Zay.
I like it. Again, greedy, man. Kenny Baker, Steve Sarkisian. This is a greedy move. You got to be greedy to win. I completely get it. I'm with it. You know, I hope that defensive tackle room gets as jam-packed as it can be because there's a lot that's not there from last year. My man, running Rodney, he ain't walking through that door anytime soon. Alfred Collins, you know, Bill Norton, all those guys provide a lot of good bump for that 2024 team. So even though we're high on Cole Brevard and Harold Canoe, Travis Shaw, bringing in players like Leavon Johnson and Murad Watson, oh, yeah, he looks like an animal. That's what you need.
I'm showing a picture of Murad Watson right now. He
no
looks
smile.
Like he's yeah, no smile. He's ready to knock your head off.
Where's he from?
He's from Jersey.
Okay. Yeah, come on, get some better weather. You know.
Irvington, New Jersey.
Yeah. Where the ladies are wearing bikinis 7 months out of the year. It's going to be different. It's going to be an adjustment, but
now
my man's got it.
Let me give you a quick refresher. Maybe I should make this the chip shot. Here is the Texas defensive tackle situation. So if you will recall, over the last 2 years, Texas lost all of its recruits at the defensive tackle position. Aaron Bryant, Zach Swanson, Jeray Bledsoe, Sadir Mitchell. Basically, the only dudes they had were the guys who played last year who'd been in the program. You know, obviously Alfred Collins, Vernon Broughton, but they brought in, you know, Jermaine Lolay, Bill Norton, Tia Savea. And then when those guys graduated and Tia Savea didn't like his situation, he moved on. They had Alex January and Melvin Hills coming back. Only January had played 94 snaps, not a lot, but he's doing great in the spring. And I need to point that out. They love Alex January. Like, he's gotten a lot of run with the ones. And obviously some of these dudes are arriving on campus now. Leavon Johnson, Murad Watson will be showing up in June. But the Texas defensive tackle, and Zay, you know this, is always my number one concern position outside of quarterback. You got to have these dudes. You got to have difference-making interior defensive linemen, or you got no shot to win the SEC or national championship. You have to have dudes who can stop the run. You're now bringing in Cole Brevard, who's legit. He's been with them all spring. Hero Canoe is a player. And he's got 2 years of eligibility left. They list him as a senior, but he redshirted in 2022. I don't know what's going on there. Travis Shaw can play. Now they got to manage him. Hell, he sounds like me. I mean, I'm trying to manage my left knee. Yeah. I'm trying to still play in these tournaments. And now you've added Leavon Johnson and Murad Watson. And these are younger guys. I mean, Murad Watson has 3 years of eligibility left. You've just replaced all those dudes that left. The Aaron Bryants, the Sadir Mitchell, Zach Swanson, and you're replacing like Sadir Mitchell with Murad Watson, who's got 3 years of eligibility left, just like Sadir Mitchell, except Murad Watson's played and started 11 games, had had a sack out of the interior defensive line position, 15 tackles. You don't judge interior defensive linemen by their tackles. You judge them by, do they clog up the middle and make it where runs are bouncing outside? That's why Casey Hampton absolutely needs to be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. Casey Hampton is one of the best football players ever at the University of Texas. From his defensive tackle position, he led the team in tackles 2 years in a row. That's insane. Like, Casey Hampton is the biggest, baddest dude, in my opinion, who's ever come through these 40 acres in my 33 years of covering the program. Like, Casey Hampton. And then he wins 2 Super Bowls with the Steelers, holding down, playing in a 3-4 defense, head up on the center, and he's holding the point of attack. It's hard to find these guys. And Texas has just replaced everything they've lost. And they've done it where, yeah, Cole Brevard's got 1 year left. Travis Shaw's got 1 year left, but Hero Canu's got 2 years left. Leavon Johnson's got multiple years, and Murad Watson's got multiple years. And you have Alex January, who's a sophomore. And you have Justice Terry, who, by the way, is playing some defensive end, Zay.
I knew it.
Sarkisian acknowledged that today.
I knew it.
And you've got Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles. So that is impressive, because those dudes can cost a lot of money. But if you get them early in their career, you can, pay them less. And then once they get here and start wrecking shop for you, you're going to have to pay them more. But that's what you want anyway. You want guys who you don't break the bank for. You want guys who you pay a fair and reasonable market value. How about that? I'm using the whole new system terminology. And then you pay your guys who are getting it done for you as they play better and better. So I can't say enough about what Sarkisian and this coaching staff, Brandon Harris, the GM, have been doing to beef up that interior defensive line position, because that is the hardest position to find difference-making players, and the most important outside of quarterback. So this is huge. They've landed 5 guys in the portal, and 3 of them have multiple years of eligibility, and you need them all, because they're all going to play. If you can roll 6, you're going to play 6. If you can roll 8, you'll play 8. Like, those guys are going to play, and they need a breather, because once those big guys are gassed, they're done. They don't go over to the sideline and breathe oxygen and come back to life. Once those guys are zapped, they're done. So you got to keep them from getting zapped. So that's big time. That's big time. You had 5 defensive tackles in the portal. And if Travis Shaw can manage that knee and be a player, because he's got all the tools, and we know Cole Brevard, Alex January is going to be, he could be a starter, or he could be one of the, he'll be one of the top 4 rotating DTs in my mind, Alex January. And then you bring along Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles, and if Justice Terry's, until he puts on the weight that he needs to put on, hell yeah. You got him rotating with Ethan Burke, Lance Jackson. Come on, man.
See, I told you that size. It screams edge rusher right now for Justice Terry.
263.
All right, then. But he's a football player, though.
Oh, yeah.
He might
they
be
love
one
him.
of those guys. He's so talented. We just got to find a spot for him to cause havoc. And right now, him being so young, not as much experience, maybe edge rusher just fits him right now. Who knows? Maybe that's what it is.
Right.
Maybe
If he doesn't,
if
he doesn't put on the weight, like, some guys, they come in, they're like, I'm going to be a running back, like Henry Melton. Henry Melton's ass was never going to let him be a running back. The kid from Cleveland, Texas, Chris, he started off at running back, ended up at defensive tackle, had a scoop and score touchdown in the Red River Shootout. Awesome kid. But like sometimes you grow right through your desired position.
Right.
That's how it goes.
That's how it goes.
But this is big news. And you think about the portal additions that Texas has made. Come on, man. You got now 10 portal additions, and they all look like they're going to help. They all look like they got juice. I got Zay's favorite, Mason Shipley.
My man.
I got Emmitt Mosley, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. I got Jack Endries, a kid who had 56 catches last year. Gunnar Helms set the single season record with 60. Endries did that as a sophomore
At Cal. With that quarterback, whoever the hell it was, and that system, whoever the hell was the coach there.
You got Brad Spence, who's that dude. I love David Benda. Brad Spence is a better pass rusher than David Benda. I mean, that was such a big pickup because he can play all three linebacker positions. He can rush the passer. And then you bring in Bo Meester to make sure your punting game is square. And look, Michael Kern might beat him out. Michael Kern's going to be really good. And you look at Bo Meester's numbers as a freshman, he averaged 39.5 yards per punt. Then it shot up to 45. Kern could have that same kind of leap because Michael Dixon had that kind of leap. Michael Dixon averaged just over 40 yards per punt as a freshman, and then it shot up to 47. Like, you figure stuff out. But now they've got insurance. And Jonah Williams wants to return punts and kicks. Jonah Williams is like, y'all just hold on. You see what I'm doing on this baseball field? Wait till I get over there.
I know, like, he's already talking about returning punts and kicks. He needs to worry about that changeup they're probably going to throw at him.
Oh, he will. Tonight.
Saying tonight, yeah.
Texas State. This dude's off to, he's only played 2 games. He's 5 for 7. And they had him batting down in the 8 hole. Just ahead of Jaden Duplantier, who's batting 129. Come on, Jaden.
Man. 129 is crazy. We gotta get on, the base somehow. Jan Duplantier. He's coming though. He had a couple of hits. Auburn series, it's coming. Just,
okay.
Whew. Yeah.
Jaden Duplantier, he's been at bat 31 times. He's got 4 hits. Jonah Williams has batted 9 times. He's got 5 hits.
Slow and steady wins the race.
Jonah Williams is coming.
Oh, he's here.
Yeah, he's here.
I think he's here already. Like,
I mean, as soon as Tulo told Schloss he's ready, Schloss was like, let's go. He's in the lineup. And they didn't even tell him. They just put it in like Schloss doesn't play that game. He just puts the lineup card up and then posts it. And then the players come and see, and then they're like, oh, Jonah, did you see you're in the starting lineup? And he's like, oh, okay.
I'm ready.
Like Schloss
Yeah, right,
doesn't
I'm in the
talk to
lineup.
the team. Schloss doesn't talk to the team after the games. He like, y'all do your thing. If we win, celebrate. You know, we'll talk tomorrow. Like, everybody get out of here. You got schoolwork to do. You got, because it's either Friday nights, Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday. So he doesn't want to keep them extra. Schloss
like
knows.
that.
Yeah, he knows exactly what he's doing, man. He's got a plan.
Yeah.
And that's what you got to have. You got to have a plan. You got to know exactly how you're doing, because it's like kids. Kids want discipline, like little kids. They need to be told how it's going to be, and then you're consistent, and then they're like, okay, this is how it's going to be. This is how we do it. We do it every day. We do it just like this.
Yeah.
And football, basketball, baseball, when you present a plan and you say it worked for this guy, this guy, this guy, this team, this team, this team, they're like, okay, we're in. And it's happening. Now let's see if they can beat Texas State tonight.
Let's go, Cade Bing. Let's get that get back, baby.
He's not starting.
Oh, no, Cade Bing.
I know. See,
who's on the hump? What's going on?
Grayson Sonier. They might be moving the Binger. Look, Jared Spencer's not starting. I think it's going to be bad news. I'm hearing there's still some final decisions that need to be made before they announce.
What's wrong with him? What do you mean bad news?
Well, I mean, I don't know if it's an injury that he could try to pitch through and have surgery later. That's what it sounds like.
That doesn't sound good, though.
Right, and that's a testament to Jared Spencer, man. He wants to fight through, and the fact that he's even thinking about,
I get pitched through and get surgery as a relief pitcher. As a starter, I think you're playing with fire gasoline a little bit.
Yeah, and the reason they, kind of went out to the mound is they monitor miles per hour like a hawk.
Yeah.
And they're like, Jared Spencer's 94 to 97. And he was pitching at 91. And they're like, uh-oh. Something's wrong.
They got the Binger like that.
Yeah. So the Binger could be, Binger could be the new Max Scruggs. Let's say they move Max Scruggs into the Friday starting role. Then they make the Binger the middle reliever. That Max Scruggs has been, because Binger came in that one Tuesday night, threw 5 perfect innings of relief, and then the bullpen after him blew it. But the Binger's been good. That would not shock me if your Friday night starter against A&M is Max Scruggs and your first middle reliever is Cade Bing. I bet you that's why they took him out of the starting lineup tonight, because they need him on the weekend now. All right, let's get to the right call.
Let's get it. Terrific chip shot per usual, my friend. But before the right call, gotta get a shout out to these amazing sponsors like McCall Custom Homes. If you're ready to upgrade your kitchen, remodel your bathroom, and add some new life to your outdoor space, call McCall Custom Homes. Over 50 years of combined experience for Mike and his pops and the rest of the team at McCall Custom Homes, and they will turn your home into something truly special. Licensed and insured, top quality at affordable prices, in-house architects. They will handle the permitting process, and they will work with your insurance. If you want to check out their terrific work on social media, go on Facebook or Instagram and type in at McCall Custom Homes. Give Mike a call at 512-633-9580. That's 512-633-9580. Or shoot them an email at mike@mccallcustomhomes.com. Visit their website at McCall Custom Homes, ATX.com. It's McCall Custom Homes We build value into your home. And Leaf Landscape Supply. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, collection of specialty plants, and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supply is your one-stop shop for everything you need. A full-service wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. 2 amazing locations, up north off Palm Springs Road, down south off 290 in Monterey Oats, and visit their website at leaflandscapesupply.com, where you can get different types of bamboo, different types of chemicals and fertilizer, seasonal type of plants, tools, vines, trees, and the whole 9. Leaf Landscape Supply is your place to be. And remember, when you go in store and you mention the crew at TSU, Texas Sports Unfiltered, your boy Zay Collier, the whole works, you get 10% off. Can't beat that. 10% off at Leaf Landscape Supply and Covert Bee Cave. Covert Automotive Dealership that been doing it in the greater Austin area for over 100 years and been doing it well. Go check them out at the beautiful Hill Country located in Bee Cave. New, used, doesn't matter. High quality selection of both vehicles. 7 terrific brands to choose from: Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram. And if you don't want to take my word for it for how good Covert Bee Cave is, well, listen to these fine folks.
It's really a family experience. You know, I walked in the showroom today and everybody greeted me by name. How are you doing? What's going on? How's everything going?
From a price standpoint, from a customer service perspective, just conversation when you come in, it feels no pressure. I want to buy cars here.
The family buying car experience, one of the best that you will ever have.
Come and experience it for yourself.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Nobody beats a Covert deal. Not now, not ever. All right, Chip. A little NBA talk today for the right call. Couple of game 2s yesterday, and we got a couple of tied up 1-1 series. The New York Knicks fall to the Detroit Pistons last night at the Garden. Game 3 going back to Detroit. And the Clippers tied the series up 1-1 against the Denver Nuggets before going back to LA. That New York Pistons series, I told you it was good. It's physical. Both teams are fighting and scrapping. And game 1, Cade Cunningham struggled a little bit. Game 2, Cade Cunningham was the man. 33 points, 11 for 21 shooting, 10 for 12 from the free throw line, getting to his spots. He was the former number 1 pick for a reason. If you remember Cade Cunningham on that Oklahoma State team a few years ago, like, he was their best player then by a long shot, and that team beat Baylor, the defending champs, or the champs that season in the Big 12 tournament. And Cade has dealt with a lot of injuries throughout his early NBA career. This is the first year he's been healthy. He'll probably get most improved. He was an all-star this year, and at 6'8", playing the point guard spot, he is a hell of a matchup to deal with, where guys like McCall Bridges, who are good defenders but a little lanky, Cade Cunningham puts that body on you and gets that shoulder into you and just has a plethora of different types of finishes. He's a hell of a player. That's a fun series. They can't stop Jalen Brunson, though, and that's kind of what you're dealing with if you're the Pistons and going up against New York. Like, Jalen Brunson's going to get his, but if you could stop Josh Hart, if you could slow down OG Anunoby, if you could slow down, McCall Bridges and Karl Anthony Towns like they did last night, then you could steal this series and move on to round 2. But Brunson's going to get his regardless. It's those other guys. Karl Anthony Towns has a good series. Knicks should win. If Karl Anthony Towns does what he did last night and only gives you around 10 points, Pistons, they're in good shape. So game 3, we'll see.
Hey, man. Look at the little Pistons coming along,
They're young, man. They're scrappy. They got Dennis Schroeder. He's been around the block. He could play a little bit out of Germany. Duran's an underrated big. Thompson twin is a solid player with a lot of upside. Tobias Harris has been around the block, who had a decent game last night. And again, Cade Cunningham, that dude, he's looking like a pretty all-star type of player. Baby Pistons growing up right in front of our eyes. And then the late night game last night, Kawhi Leonard put on one of the best performances you're going to see in a long time. 15 for 19 from the field, 39 points. Like, you miss 4 shots in the playoffs. That's it. You take 19, you miss 4. You know, it's just getting to his spots, pull-up jumpers, going to the right, going to the left, step back, pull-up threes on a fast break, running the floor, getting dunks. I mean, I get why Spurs fans hate Kawhi Leonard. He is cold as hell, and he said, you know what, I ain't trying to be around San Antonio no more. I get it. I understand it. You know, when he is healthy, that's why he's a top 75 player of all time, and he showed it last night. And, you know, those boys in Denver, they got championship DNA. They're prideful. Nikola Jokic, one of the greatest ever, who had another triple-double last night, 26, 10, and 12. And it wasn't like the Nuggets played bad. It's just one of those things. When you get to this time of the year, you could play well and still lose. And that's what happened last night against the Clippers. I mean, if Kawhi's going to have those types of games, then it's going to be hard to beat them. And James Harden's been playing well too. And James Harden's doing a good job of being that Robin to Kawhi's Batman. There's going to be times where you need James Harden to take over, and he's definitely capable of doing that. But also, with him being in his mid-30s, he's lost a step or two. So you're not going to be able to get that consistency every night. Him being a number 2 for somebody like Kawhi Leonard that's playing as well as he's played in a very long time, that's what makes the Clippers dangerous. Norman Powell solid, Nicholas Batum solid, Zubac, like Tyronn Lue is doing a really good job with this team. And I think I said 7. I don't know who I said. Maybe Denver. Did I get Denver in 7 in this one?
You said Denver in 7.
Denver at 7, yeah, that feels right. What about the Detroit Knicks one? That's Knicks in 7 too, right?
Knicks in 7.
Yeah, that's how it's feeling. That's how it's feeling. So, again, just great night of basketball. Both games were terrific. Tonight we're going to get some solid games too. See what the Los Angeles Lakers can do, trying to come back from that awful performance in game 1. Trying to see what Thunder are going to do, because they beat the crap out of the Grizzlies and had John Morant smiling down by 60 on the bench. And the NBA TV game, which, you know, Dame Lillard comes back tonight for the Bucks, so that'll make it a little more interesting. But, yeah, there's better series than that Milwaukee-Indiana one, even though it's not bad. Good basketball, though.
So Ben Simmons, he's gone from making tens of millions per year. He's making $755,000.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a 6'10" point guard.
Yeah, how many minutes did he get last night?
8.
Yeah, he's kind of a liability at this point of his career. I don't really can't shoot. He's not a good free throw shooter. Not the best finisher. Sometimes has weird basketball IQ where he'll have an open layup but then throw it out to try to be fancy on the pass. He's just a weird player that for sure underachieved being the number 1 pick that he was. A lot of LeBron James comparisons, which is crazy, but also they did fit during the time that he was coming out of LSU. Like you said, his measurements, 6'10", ton of athleticism, gifted passer, but Philly really broke him. Like, Philadelphia is not for everyone. You better have tough skin. You better have just the tough mental mindset. And I think Philadelphia, the fans, they really broke him to where he lost a lot of confidence in himself. The injuries didn't help either. So wherever else he landed, whatever franchise picked him up, he always underachieved. So he's always going to go down as one of the biggest what ifs in NBA history.
Guess how much money he's made in his NBA career, Ben Simmons?
Over 200 million has to be.
203 million.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right.
Makes sense.
Let's bring in the open gym. Patrick and Matt. What's up, fellas?
Oh, doing good. Enjoyed those games last night. Some fun basketball was played last night. I enjoyed it a lot. And yeah, anytime you see Ben Simmons now, there's that point of, sometimes when you're the best and most athletically dominating player, you should probably start working on being better because it will run out in the NBA. And that was Ben Simmons. I mean, Anthony Bennett is always the biggest example of it.
Yeah.
But Ben Simmons just never got better. He's the exact same player he was as a rookie. And everyone else figured him out. And so when you don't add other parts of your game, like if you can't go left, eventually they're just going to stand at your right side.
Right.
And try and make you beat them. So you have to keep learning new things in the NBA. He just never did. And everyone knows, like, well, when Ben Simmons, and so even now in the Clippers, some matchups, they don't scout him well enough, and he can still play. But anyone who scouts him, like in a 7-game series, worthless.
Yep.
Y'all remember when Colin Cowherd told LeBron that we were good because Ben Simmons was here?
One of the best takes ever, Colin Cowherd. We're good, LeBron. We got Ben Simmons.
You can go.
The league the next 10 years.
Was that like 2015, 2016?
Yeah,
it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was rookie season. It had to be rookie season because, I mean, after that, we
close.
kind of started to see the cracks.
Yeah.
Woo!
Appreciate you guys.
Hey, see you tomorrow.
Appreciate you. We will see y'all tomorrow for more. Welcome into Open Gym. Myself, Patrick Davis, alongside Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI. We're going to have a good show today. More transfer portal news happened right before we got on the air. Hasheem Thabit, one of the 7'3" guys, CB, that gets drafted, I believe, 7'3", that was drafted simply because he was tall, and nobody thought it was a good pick at the time, but they were like, well, he's tall, so as long as you teach him how to play basketball, he'll be fine. It's not usually a good draft idea, but it's not the top 3 picks.
I completely forgot that Hasheem Thabit existed, and I'm going to be honest, I kind of forgot about Ben Simmons as well. So,
I mean, Ben Simmons is currently in the playoffs.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that. That's how much NBA I'm paying attention to these days, Patrick.
There were some good games last night. We'll get into it. There were some good games last night as we continue on here in the playoffs, but the transfer portal news is happening fast and furious, and Texas is getting what they want in the transfer portal. We'll also get into some Sark audio from today. He talks a little bit about some of the portal additions so far and some of the guys in the draft and what's happening in spring. We'll get into that as well. Quinn Ewers was on the John Gruden draft class. We will talk a little bit about that as well and a little bit more draft talk as we get going throughout the day. But let's start, Matt, with the transfer portal because Texas made some news right before we came on.
Yeah, I mean, just in time. They knew Open Gym was coming on the air.
They let us see it before we had to go on, and then people in the chat have to tell us.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Texas gets a commitment from freshman All-American Syracuse defensive tackle Murad Watson. He's going to have 3 years of eligibility left. It was really down to Texas and Ohio State, according to most reports, but Texas was the only one who actually got a visit, and it appears they did not let him leave campus without committing, which is always a good sign.
Yeah.
He finished his freshman year this past year with 30 tackles, 15 solo, 1 sack, 1 pass breakup. He had 6 tackles in an upset win over number 6 Miami. And he was named, like I said, he was named a freshman All-American. He was the number 4 player available in the transfer portal when he committed, and he was listed as a 4-star transfer, which is seems like a higher designation than a 4-star recruit because there's not very many 4-star transfers. It's very rare that you see that in a lot of players. It's just the top players that kind of get those numbers.
Yeah.
Especially, 3-star recruit coming out of high school. He committed to Kent State before flipping to Syracuse in 2023. But he did get offers from Tennessee, Nebraska, and a couple other Power 5 schools as well. So, I think this is a huge deal. Number one, because now you have a legit 6-man rotation that you can rely on in the middle of that defense in a position that we thought was uber thin going into the offseason.
Yeah. that's
also,
it. Go ahead.
I was going to say it also gives you a guy who's going to be around for a long time because he's got a couple years of eligibility left. He can grow with Justice Terry and Alex January and Melvin Hills and these other two freshmen, Josiah Sharma and Myron Charles. And now you're a little bit less worried about the future of the position after all these one-year rentals are done.
Yeah, I think that was kind of maybe in the thinking of what they were doing this offseason as well, was trying to make sure that there would be a little bit more consistency going forward, because as much as it's great to put in 2 defensive tackles in the draft every year, there's a part that you're losing 2 NFL caliber defensive tackles every single year. So I think, getting some younger guys in, but being able to keep a rotation that is 6 strong, keeping a rotation that does have a lot of guys in it and a lot of potential now as well. So it's a little bit different from before, where it was Alfred Collins and Vernon Broughton were 2 guys that were like untapped potential. We knew it was there, but we never really saw it. And now I think there's a different level of, well, one of these guys is going to show out this year. We know one of them was going to play really well, and maybe 2, but we don't know which 2 yet. And we'll find out which ones and where their roles are as we get into the season and as we get into the camp before we get into actual football in August. I think we'll start to hear a little bit more about who's winning those positions, who's going to be the starters. Especially early, we've talked about it. The rotation for Texas and Sark is huge. He loves to rotate players, especially on that defensive line. Now you have the ability with a loaded edge room, and I know Trey Moore is kind of working in that linebacker edge shift back and forth wherever he needs to be used. But between those 2 spots, you just really feel good that early on you can rotate a ton of guys on that defensive line. And when you're playing in Ohio State, who's coming off of a national championship and has a lot of guys leaving and they're facing similar problems, you're going to be able to throw them so many different looks from guys that they don't necessarily have a ton of film on, a lot of guys that they may not know exactly what's coming from that defensive line. And I think it's going to be pretty effective early on, and then get through your non-conference, just figuring out that lineup and figuring out who's going to earn time and which formations and in which group packagings do you want to put people, who's going to play well, who plays well 4 or 5 snaps in a row, who plays well in 2 snaps in a row. All those pieces you start to figure out as you get closer to the season in those first couple games.
Yeah, and you can play them and and be matchup dependent as well. You can, a couple of these guys may be bigger space eaters that are better against the run and better against a more powerful offensive line, and then there's a couple guys in there who are a little bit more adept with the pass rush. Theoretically, you could throw 7 guys out there and rotate 7 guys out, 7 guys throughout the game that are going to keep your defensive line fresh all the way through Ohio State, non-conference, Florida. And that way, by the end of the season, when you get to the conference championship time and college football playoff time, your guys aren't spent. They're not beat. And that was an issue that they faced a little bit more in 2023 than they did in 2024, because it was so it was just the 4, Travondre Sweat, Byron Murphy, Alfred Collins, and Vernon Broughton, really. And then last year they brought in, 4 new guys, and they had a couple more in there. But it was this is going to be the deepest defensive line and pass rush that they've had. Maybe not the most talented in terms of the interior that they've ever had, obviously, but it's going to be deep, and it's going to be able to rotate, and it's going to keep guys fresh, and that's going to be really critical down the stretch.
It will be. Now, with a few days left in the portal, the spring portal being open till Friday, is there really anything else Texas needs to go after? Is this now feel like you're pretty good, and if something arises, maybe another wide receiver that's a real star talent, maybe you look that direction. Maybe if there's another kicker that you really feel is going to bring some competition to the room, that maybe you go there and add another kicker. But I don't know how much more you're really going to add to this roster right now. I mean, you could add depth in the secondary. You could add, but it's a question of where, does Texas have to go? They've been killing it. Everybody they're looking at, they feel like they're getting. So, if you're going to go after somebody, you got to really want them.
Yeah, and it's not just these. We forget, they've got all these defensive linemen, and they got the tight end, and they got the wide receiver and the kicker. But earlier on in the transfer portal, they also got a linebacker, and they also got a punter. So they've really filled all the holes that they had going into this offseason with some veterans that are talented guys that, they'll be able to throw out there early. I don't know that there's anything else they really need to add. I feel really good about the running back room. if anything, it's like you said, they probably add another wide receiver, maybe a kick return specialist. I'm not sure the guy from BYU is going to be in the cards. It seems like he's kind of moving on towards other programs, but it's still undecided. So maybe they get themselves in there and they go for a kick return specialist. But outside of that, I don't really see much. Maybe a corner could make sense, but I feel like you're still pretty good there with a lot of young talent and Manny Muhammad and Jalen Gilbo. So, this team seems pretty complete in my book. And, we were talking a couple weeks ago about how we feel about where they sit going into, college football playoff contention and all that stuff. And that was before they got, 4 or 5 of these guys. And now it's like, okay, I feel like, they're really truly a contender with very, very few flaws at this point.
Yeah, it's funny. It does feel like Sark's closing ability and Brandon Harris and everybody on this staff's closing ability before they leave campus is the kind of the thought of, if they leave, we're not counting on them ever coming back. Mm-hmm. And so we just kind of write it off once they walk out of here. But our closing, and there's a clip, I don't know if you've ever seen it, from a show that was like a dating show where it was like, farmers meeting girls from the city, and they're at this date, and the guy goes, "So I just need to know up front, do you have any romantic feelings toward me, or is this just platonic?" And she's like, "Well, I mean, we're just friends." And he goes, "Cool, that's all I need to know." And he just gets up from the dinner table and walks out. And like from that moment, just walks out and goes, "Cool, no, we're good. It's just like, I'm not in this to make friends. So if that's all it's going to be, I don't need another friend." And he just walks out. And that's what I feel like Sark does at these meetings with the guys. Like, "Well, do you want to be a Texas Longhorn?" They go, "Well, I got to go." "Okay, cool. Bye." That's fine. Like, we'll go find some. We're good. We're not necessarily. We want you really bad, but if you don't want it, there's the door, and here's a sign right here. But we're not going on and playing this. We're not going to go over the next 2 weeks of you kind of come back with a different bid of what you're looking for in NIL and what you want to see in playing time. We're not doing that. We're telling you what the deal is, and we'd love for you to be here. But here's your pitch. Take it, or you can walk it. And now if you want to come back later, we can talk again. But he's been closing these deals. I believe I saw a stat that out of 13 people that visited, 10 have signed. And so it is a pretty good number that he pulls off of that deal. Joe says Farmer wants a wife. Yeah, I think that was the name of it. I've just seen the clips of it.
And I'm pretty sure that we all know what that pitch is at this point. It's come here. If you come here, you're going to compete for a national championship. I'm going to get you to the NFL, and you're going to get a pretty decent NIL package. It may not be, necessarily what you're going to get elsewhere, where you're the only defensive tackle that's signing, but you're going to have a really damn good chance to get to the NFL. We're going to compete for a national championship, and we're going to be there for a long time. Look at what we're about to do in the draft 2 years in a row. So it's probably a pretty simple pitch, and he sells it really well, and they've been super successful with it.
Yeah, it seems to be working. And so we saw that, and Texas gets another transfer portal edition at football. And then we roll over to basketball right now, and it is slowing down. Today is the last day players could get into the portal. And I saw one name that popped in late. That is officially my pipe dream if Texas could pull this off. Now, the odds of them pulling this off is maybe 2%. The guy's Boogie Fland. He is the point guard out of Arkansas. Basically, he wants to go to the draft. Right now, he's projected to be a late first-round pick, possibly a second-round pick. He is still focused on trying to be a first-round draft pick and going to the NBA. That's what he wants to do. But he did, just for anything, I think somebody probably told him at some point, you want to keep your options open because there's a chance if you slide in the second round, you really don't want to be a second-round draft pick. And this is part of the thing with the NBA. Once you're a second-round draft pick, it is 100% on you to succeed in the NBA. First-round draft picks have guaranteed contracts. The NBA, the teams are going to fight a little bit more for you to try and achieve something. Once there's no guaranteed in there, who cares? If you don't make it, fine. Like, we'll move on. We missed the pick, whatever. We move on from it. Second-round draft picks are not as valuable, like a long distance of value between first and what you have to do. You're going to get sent down to G League. You're going to have to prove yourself. It's going to be a long road to get back up. He is an undersized player as well. He's about a 6'2" point guard, and he plays kind of combo. He's a good scorer. But that is a guy that fits perfectly into what Texas would do. Now, he may be a guy that wants more money than Texas is going to offer. He was at Arkansas, which we know was shelling out some good money with John Calipari there. But what he can do, he is a true freshman that came out. I believe he's only 18 years old. He averaged 13.5 points per game, 5.1 assists per game, 1.5 steals per game. He only shot 34% from three, but the number that you want to see is catch and shoot threes. He was 47.6% from catch and shoot threes last season.
Mm-hmm.
So in an offense where he can dribble down, move the ball around a little bit, catch a pass and shoot, he is dead on at that kind of shooting. So somebody that you really, really like in this, can play the point guard position, can do a lot of different things. His numbers were not great down the stretch. He got back for the tournament, but he hurt his hand. So he missed basically the last 2 months of the season. And then in the tournament, played some loose minutes, but wasn't as effective after the hand injury, trying to come back and play a couple of games. So he is right now focused on the draft, but he did put his name in the portal. There is chance that maybe the NBA says you really should go for another year. Like, go make some money, go back to college, go back and see what it is. And that would be the name that if you put him on this roster, it really changes the complexion of next season, because you're adding in somebody who was pretty much a consensus number one overall point guard in recruiting a year ago. You're putting somebody in to fill the position you have not had. You haven't had really a point guard to play that way in a little bit. I think that really changes what you look at next season if you're able to land it. Now, again, super small percentage, very small percentage chance that Texas is able to pull this off. He also has a do not contact, which also means you're not allowed to call him and try and persuade him that way. Now, there's other ways of getting around those, but you are not allowed to call him and say, please come to Texas and we'll make your life a perfect thing and it'll be awesome and come on down. But that is the case right now for Boogie Fland. It's just an interesting name to see pop in right at the end.
Yeah, and if you really dive into his stats, you can see the sort of the skill set there at the three. The potential there. He had multiple games where he was really good from three. 3 of 5 against LSU, 5 of 8 against Oakland, 4 of 9 against Miami. 3 of 5 a couple more times in the season, including against a very, very good Baylor team. He had a lot of high-scoring output games before his injury. And there was a couple of games in there where you could see where he's still working on it, where he go 0 of 4, 1 of 8, 2 of 9,
yes.
1 of 6. So the potential for it is there. He's a little bit streaky, but if Sean Miller can get his hands on him and kind of refine that and take advantage of what his skill set actually is, it sounds like he's a guy that could really fit in nicely with the offense that they're trying to run and the style of basketball they're trying to play. I mean, 6'2" is pretty decent size for a point guard considering what Texas has had recently, right?
It is.
So
his shooting falls into more of the Klay Thompson world where, Klay Thompson with flat, catching a pass is one of the best shooters, and especially back in his prime was one of the best shooters in NBA history. And then he would try and create something off of that. And now Boogie can do that somewhat on inside. He can do that mid-range, but he doesn't have as much luck at the three. So if he's dribbling and goes into a three, I mean, Tremont Mark is a similar type shooter like that as well. So a lot of guys are not as good when you're trying to get into a shot by dribbling, but he is light years better at shooting when he's a catch and shoot guy than when he's trying to create. His biggest flaw is because he's a little bit undersized, doesn't necessarily have the body mass. He's not a great finisher around the basket. So you say you usually want your point guards to be able to drive and shoot threes. But if I'm saying what this Texas team needs and what Texas has already in different pieces, I can give up having that one ability, and we can keep working on that, trying to get your body a little bit bigger and trying to get, a little bit better around finishing around the rim. However, we have 10 guys that can finish around the rim. We're good in that realm. Now, would I like everybody to be well-rounded and do everything? Yes. But at the end of the day, you understand there's some limitations. So he right now jumps to the front of the line of somebody that if you have any chance of being able to pull this guy in, then that is somebody that I think changes the program for next season. Now, again, he wants to go to the NBA. Who knows what school he would look at if he wanted to come back out. He did talk to Kentucky before, but that was with John Calipari, which is why he went to Arkansas. He met with a ton of schools before, and because he's a guy, at 6'2", you kind of climb up boards, and the difference between a 6'2", number 1 ranked point guard and number 6 ranked is pretty big. in a lot of these. So I think there's different points of it where if you were looking for a guy to come in and do one more year, because he's only going to do one more year, he's a one and done guy. Now he'd be a two and done guy, but he wants to go to the NBA. That's his goal. And if he feels like this could help him be, and I think when you look at Arkansas, you could say, well, you were never the guy at Arkansas. Now, maybe if he had played a whole season, it would have been different. But if you say you got to come back for one more year, you're going to be the guy here. And I know we got older guys, but you're going to be one of the main, like you're going to be running the ship and you're going to be the point guard. I think you could see, I think there's a reason to make the pitch at least if you get the opportunity.
Yeah, and if you look at a couple of his other stats that are interesting as well, 1.5 steals per game is something you really like too. So it looks like he's very opportunistic on the defensive end, knows how to play passing lanes, and he's a good free throw shooter too. Hits 83% from the line. So a lot of other really good things in there that you can add to that, repertoire. And look, we've been saying this is the one thing that this team really, really needs to land at this point. We'd love another big man. We'd love a 3-point shooter, but you got to get a point guard and you got to get a guy that can score and, play a little defense on the perimeter. He sounds like he can do all of those things. I would agree with you. Outside of, the Haggerty kid from Memphis, I don't even know if what he's done. He might have signed already, but
he's because he still wants too much money. So that'll be a minute, but.
So, those are really the two guys out there that you have your pipe dreams for at this moment.
Yeah.
You hope you can land one of them. The chances of landing either of them aren't necessarily great, but you still got to make a phone call if you're Sean Miller for sure.
And then there's an interesting thing that is happening right now of guys that kind of jumped in the portal late. And this is the weird one. There's a large number of players who have jumped in the portal with 0 years of remaining eligibility. So he talked about Ante Brozovic as a foreign player. He played in D2 one year, and he's claiming that's one of the reasons why he should be allowed another year. And some of the other guys have done the D2 and they say we should get another year because of transferring over and everything else. But now the ruling that they're fighting for is basically because other guys got COVID years and because of redshirt years that you can have 5 years of eligibility, but you can only play 4. There's people going to court to say, well, if they can be school for 5 years, we should be able to be at school for 5 years because they were still getting paid during their redshirt year. So they're earning more money than we are able to earn, and that is unfair. So we should all players should have 5 years of eligibility, where you redshirt or not. There's just 5 years is now the standard. Redshirts would go away, and you would just have standard 5 years for everybody. That is what they're trying to get into the courts. The odds of this going through, especially before next season, are not great. It's a pretty outside chance that this would happen. But if it does, there is a ton of players, especially point guards, who are not going to go to the NBA because they're under 6'3", and they fall out of that will suddenly become available. And so there is an outside chance that you'll have some pretty good players that are veteran players that could become available if this court case goes to court, if everything happens, and the judges rule that now in the NCAA there is 5 years. Or if the NCAA says, screw it, we're not fighting it, give them 5 years. We don't care anymore. That's another, because we know the NCAA right now, they're trying to get rid of a bunch of rules about paying players in the schools, and they're trying to just basically get out of the money issue because they keep getting sued, and they don't want to pay the court fees. They don't want to pay the lawyers anymore. And so they're trying to stay out of it. So there's a possibility it could happen. I don't want it to happen. I don't think it should happen, but it could happen. So there's a lot of these things that happen in college sports right now that most of us as old school college fans don't really want. I'm all for NIL. I'm not thrilled the way it's happening, but I'm all for it. Name, image, and likeness should have always been a right. It is crazy that the schools could profit off of players' name, image, and likeness and not allow them to sign autographs or do anything else for money. That's always crazy to me. However, just having guys go, well, here's $2 million, come to our school and we'll pay you. That's not exactly what you're meant to have. Now, if the schools have money and there's salary caps and all that, awesome. Let's do it. Let's go crazy. You're getting all this money for them being on TV. I'm all for that. The NCAA is trying to go in some routes. Some schools are going to be left out. I get it. Luckily, we all cover Texas, and that school is probably not going to get left out. So, I get it. It's not perfect. There's nothing perfect in this world. And so old school Patrick says, 5 years, come on, guys. I didn't really love the COVID year. I think it screwed it up to have 25, 26-year-old players in college. I don't like having that as much. It just kind of changes the game more and more. But it could happen. Just saying it could. So prepare yourself for if it happens, because that means a lot of players that do not have NBA dreams, and their option is I can go to Xavier and make $100,000, or I could go to Bratislava and make 25 grand. I'm going to Xavier. That sounds like a lot more fun. And I'll go get a master's or something. And I don't care, but yeah, it's crazy that this could be happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't know where they find the solution for all this NIL stuff. It's so messy at the moment. I mean, just look at the Nico Iavao stuff. It's absolutely crazy that players can just go in there. Yeah, thank you. I've been really working on that for the last few weeks. But it's crazy that at this point, players can just kind of pick and choose wherever they want to go based on an offer from a donor sitting on his couch in Austin or in College Station or wherever the case may be. There obviously needs to be some rules and regulations that I hope that whatever this court case is one of those things that kind of makes this start to move in the right direction, because it's obvious, like you said, the NCAA is tired of fighting all this crap, and they're just like, please, can we just stop getting sued? We need to stop hemorrhaging money at this point. But it's probably going to be a while. We're in the worst, most unpredictable state that we've been in quite some time, and I think it's hurting every major college sport, not just basketball. I mean, it's hurting football. Look at what happened to Alabama. I mean, they lost the best safety in America when Caleb Downs just like, nah, I'm gonna go to Ohio State. Yeah, it's fine. They're gonna give me some money. Ole Miss lost Quinshon Judkins. Tennessee lost Nico Iavao. I mean, it's crazy what's happening right now. So hopefully they figure it out soon.
Yeah, and I mean, you want to see, that's the thing, is I keep saying I want to see contracts at some point. You want to be able to see the teams be able to have some sort of leverage back at this, because it does feel like most things in life, some people are ruining it for everybody. And there's some players that are coming out, like Nico, who says, let's renegotiate my deal during spring training. So I'm going to hold you all over the fire. And what are you going to do about it after the fall camp? Well, after most of the quarterbacks have already been settled and after all that's been done, now I'm going to hold you over the fire. I think that you hate to see that kind of stuff. And so you say, no, you signed a 3-year deal. We're paying you this amount. That's what you signed for. And if you don't want to show up, fine, but you ain't playing anywhere else. Mm-hmm. And we're not paying you, but you're under contract. So you're in breach, and we'll just sit back and you can go try and sue us in court and everything else. But there's a contract now. And right now the contract is for 1 year every year, because for a lot of these players, they want to get out of it. And for some of you, I mean, if you're a kicker who gets a scholarship, like, yeah, can I get it that 6 years, 7 years? I don't care. Don't cut me because I start to get the yips. I still want to finish.
Bird Auburn.
So I think that there's a lot that you could see that needs to be fixed. But yeah, it's a really interesting thing that there's several players now, because I see the Ate Brozovic, but then Clemson had 2 guys go in the other day, and certain people are just being told by their agents, just enter the portal. Because if you don't and the school moves on, there's nothing you can really do, because they've already used their scholarships, and your school may have to move on because they assume, rightfully so, that your eligibility is over. They have moved on from you. But there's always going to be other schools that need somebody and are looking. And as soon as this happens, it will basically start another transfer portal cycle out of nowhere, because all of these people that are in the portal will now get another year. And I'm sure they would just say, like, everybody who's that is regained eligibility can go in the portal for a couple days, because otherwise there's another lawsuit that'll happen that you screwed us because this wasn't a rule before we got in. I don't know. So I hate the lawsuits. I always hate them. It's the worst to always have to go do things in this legal way instead of being able to settle it at the table. But people realize they're winning lawsuits, and the NCAA doesn't. The NCAA kind of rules arbitrarily on a lot of things, and in the courts, the people have been winning way more than the NCAA. The fact that the NCAA was a borderline criminal syndicate for a lot of years, like they were really doing things that were not ethical for a lot of years, and lawmakers know that, and judges know that. So anytime you just throw out, well, the NCAA basically didn't allow players to do, they go, oh yeah, that's antitrust 100%. So we rule against him every time and let these players do whatever they want. The problem is if you allow 5 years, then someone will be at court, next offseason. Well, I need a 6th year because you see, I didn't get playing time my freshman year. And so I only got the ability to earn money 2 years, while some freshmen. So we need 8 years of eligibility, and you need 4 years as a starter. And that's what you need. 4 years as a starting player. And that's how you get your eligibility. Until you get that, you still have eligibility. It'll never end. And so you'd like the NCAA to just make a rule and not let the courts handle it. Because once the courts do, it becomes crazy. But that's something to watch out for with the transfer portal right now, because Texas could really use a point guard. I know he said Boogie Flan's there, but that probably is a less chance than the courts siding with the players and more players becoming available. It's probably a smaller chance that Boogie Flan comes to Texas. So just keeping your options open. They've also been scouting a lot overseas. I know there's another Italian player that they were looking at. They're doing a lot of overseas scouting and trying to find somebody to find a hidden gem. The problem is NBA is scouting overseas as well. And at this point, the guys you're going to find overseas are usually extremely, extremely, extremely rough to start. And then you're going to try and build them up and teach them in your way. But that's a 3-year process usually. It's a 2 to 3 year process, depending on what position they play. That's a long process to try and get somebody up to speed on playing, up to speed on taking school in America, up to speed on speaking the language well enough, up to speed on everything. It's a long, the customary, just everything about it changes so dramatically. And so it's tough. I appreciate the fact they're doing it. Because if you are able to find that one that you think this guy has everything we want and we're going to build him, that's great. Because again, we're saying the plan is to be competing for a title in 2028. That's kind of where we're looking at it right now is 2028. So 2026 and 2026 will be okay. 2027 will be 2025, 2020, the tournament games in 2026, and then 2027. You'll be a little bit better. You'll be getting closer. And then 2028 should be where you got some guys that are really coming up and you're feeling better about it in 3 years. So that I get it. That's the art to get these guys, but that's kind of where Texas basketball is right now.
Yeah, and the international recruiting thing is kind of interesting to me because there are a lot of risks to it with the players being raw and the language barrier and all those things that you mentioned. But at the same time, there's also a lot of really interesting positives to it as well. I mean, look, like these guys are playing, they're 17, 18, 19 years old or whatever, but they're playing against grown ass men in a lot of these leagues. Like the French guy that they're talking to who averaged over 19 points a game, or who, not that they're talking to, but who, was listed as being interested potentially in Texas, or they're going to try to communicate with him or whatever. The Italian guy as well. Like those guys have played against some real basketball players. So there's that aspect to it, but it's still a huge risk. I mean, going all the way back to Dirk Nowitzki. I mean, he looked at colleges in the United States and he just decided, no, I'm going to stick in Germany and I'm going to play, and then I'm going to go to the NBA. I guess he originally thought he was going to have to go into the Army. Thank God that didn't happen. But there's just so many other factors that go into international recruiting that, that are a huge risk for both the player and the university. So, if you can find a Boogie Fland instead of going out and finding a French wing who's going to take you 2 years to develop and a third year to get some real playing time, it's kind of an easy decision. But as we know, Sean Miller said he wants to recruit internationally, so maybe we'll see a name or two like that, but we'll see.
Yeah, and two, it's like there's so many leagues overseas that it's really hard to tell until you start to do more and more research and you really find out, is this league legit, or is it he's averaging 19 points, but half the teams in this league are not legit and half them are. There's some leagues over there that there's high schools that are way better than some of those leagues over there because they're grown men and they play a very physical style of basketball, but it's more like 24-hour fitness. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's that more style of basketball where it's not a lot of athleticism. And so, some people can play the game because it isn't too fast for them. And then they get to college or they get to pro and the game is immensely faster than anything they've ever done. And so that's where you have to find, that middle ground in between of why is this guy not been found before? Why is this guy is available? Well, because he's playing in gyms right now. He's playing in like small gyms against guys who were not good enough to even make anything else of their lives. And they've just been playing, and they're playing for, $10,000 a year in this, kind of side league. That doesn't, even though they're pro players, it's not quite the same as what we mean in America.
Yeah, it's kind of like the argument that people make on 80s and 90s basketball, where it's just a bunch of plumbers and mailmen, right?
Not quite. I think the skill level might have been a little bit higher, but
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit higher. Also, let's talk about Quinn Ewers for a minute, Matt, while we have a little bit of time before the break. Let's talk about Quinn Ewers and his draft class with the QB class with John Gruden. Were you able to watch this yet and see Quinn Ewers going through the process? It's a pretty cool video. It's up on YouTube, so anybody can go watch it. It is basically John Gruden going through and sitting with him room with him for a while, going on the board, drawing up some plays, talking about different things that Quinn would have to go through. They go through some highlights and stuff. They talk about the 4th and 13 against Arizona State, and he breaks down what happened in that play, which is pretty cool to see if that Matthew Golden didn't run the same route. And, the audible, he left the route tree the same, but he shifted Gunnar Helm into protection to help him out, which gave him enough time to get the ball off to Matthew Golden down the field. But it's, going over some of those plays for Texas is fun to watch. And just seeing Quinn go through his process of trying to learn everything and go through, and it's interesting. And then you see him out on the field, and he's making all the throws. Now, that's some video magic, I'm sure, as well, that you're able to do all that. But it was a pretty fun watch. I enjoyed seeing Quinn Ewers go through the process, even if John Gruden can be somewhat over the top.
Yeah, John Gruden's an interesting cat, that's for sure. There were a couple of things, though, that really stuck out to me about this. The first one being, the fact that Quinn is changing his drop back, which I thought was a very interesting thing. Like, throughout his entire career, he's gone left foot forward on his 3-step drop, and now he's switching to his right foot because he thinks in the long term it's going to help him be more accurate, which, I'm not a quarterback scientist. I know a lot about quarterbacks. I don't know how that makes a difference or not. Maybe it has something to do with just the timing and getting his foot down in the right place or whatever the case may be. But, I thought that was very interesting because it sounds like he's really trying to find some things that are going to help him, get over the hump at the next level. But honestly, the stuff that really stuck out to me was just the way that he was breaking things down and the way that Texas was running their plays and the things that he did to kind of set these guys up for success that don't necessarily pop out on tape or to fans and that are sitting on their couch drinking beer, calling Quinn Ewers a bum because he, isn't making every throw in the book. Like, I mean, the 4th and 13 is a good example, but I thought another really good example was the one against Clemson with Gunnar Helm.
Yep.
Where he saw that they were sitting in a 3-high cover shell, and he was, they ran the same route, but he knew that Gunnar Helm was not going to run it exactly to scheme because of the guy that was sitting there. So he knew that he was going to break it off a little bit. He had that, connection with his player to know where he was going to be, and he just put it right over the guy's head, and it was right in his breadbasket. And he was picking this stuff up. And obviously, like, let me preface this by saying that they're not going to film this thing and put Quinn through it and all that stuff and show any of the mistakes or the bad things. They're going to try to paint him in as good a light as possible. But it seemed like he was picking this stuff up really quickly. He was very confident with all of it. It kind of spoke to his, his football brain and his football IQ, where, I think that's kind of what sets him apart from a lot of these other quarterbacks. Is I think even without seeing this, I thought this already, but I think he's the most schematically smart quarterback in this class because of the way that he can manipulate coverages and blocking schemes and call protections and do all these different things. And, the trust that he showed in these players a lot of times, where he's just going to make sure that he puts the ball in the right spot and he trusts his players enough to go get it, like the play against Alabama with Xavier Worthy. He knew, hey, this is the fastest guy in the freaking country. If I just put it up there at the back pylon, he's going to run and go get it. And he, so I thought there was a lot of good things in there. I got a little bit annoyed at some points with Gruden just because of all the yelling and the different, New York, Star Wars, Fort, like all this, just absolute dross. So I was just like, dude, just come on, let's just watch him break down some highlights. Yeah. He's not going to have to pick up 10 new plays on the first day of being drafted by the Seahawks or whatever. You know what I mean? So, but it was very interesting. I thought it was a good look for Quinn. I wish they hadn't shown the TikTok stuff. That was a little cringy, but outside of that, it was pretty solid.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that he hadn't handled that well. He handled the question about going to Ohio State and leaving his senior year pretty well. Just like, look, Texas legislation said we couldn't make money. I had a $1.4 million offer, a memorabilia deal offer. I'm not going to not take that. And I like, that makes good sense. I get everyone can say you have your future ahead of you and you're going to make all this money. If someone today said you got to move to Ohio for a year, you're going to make $1.4 million. All of us will be packed before I finish this sentence. Like, it's not hard. That's a really easy decision to make. I had the opportunity to go and make a lot of money. He didn't throw Tom Herman under the bus, which is the reality of things too, which is, I would have just gone to Texas a year early, but the coach there was kind of an idiot at times. And so I decided to go play for a different coach.
And the players didn't like him either.
Yeah. And so then I went up there and then, he didn't, he was asked about CJ Stroud and Calvin Carter. He's like, yep, it was all right. And then it's like, that was kind of just not the best chapter of my life, but I made a bunch of money. So cool. And I went down to Texas. I like that. And then what I appreciated, you saw his sense of humor a little bit at the end when they say, what do you want to break the huddle with? And he told Gruden, what about Chevrolet? Because the entire thing is sponsored by Chevrolet. And as he kind of says it a lot throughout the thing. And so I thought that was a good sense of humor by Quinn to just be like, no, I get what this is. We're plugging a car company. So
yeah. Yeah. And also some of the things that Gruden said throughout the process and watching the film with him and the things that he liked about Quinn are really interesting, because a lot of these NFL like mock draft people are trashing him for a lot of these things, like the way the ball comes off of his hand, like his arm strength and all this stuff. And Gruden's sitting there like, no, dude, this kid can freaking sling it. Like, he's got a cannon. And like when he's healthy, he can put the ball anywhere he wants on the field. And he showed a bunch of those plays. So I thought that was really cool. And, overall, I thought it was a really good look for Quinn. I don't know that it's necessarily going to help his draft stock or anything like that, but it's nice to see him get out there and get some pub when, most of the time, all you hear through this pre-draft process about quarterbacks is Jackson Dart, Shedeur Sanders, and Cam Ward. It's nice to see Quinn get some shine there. And, I'm probably going to go back and watch it again a couple times just because it was super entertaining. Like it was a really good thing. It was a really good deal.
It was good. Yeah. And could y'all imagine Gruden on cocaine? Yeah, I could.
Are we sure he's not?
Yeah, he's talk a bit more than he already talks. I've been around people on cocaine once or twice in my life, and people that are pretty exuberant beforehand, and they're just exuberant still. I mean, he'd probably tell you he loves you a lot more. John Gruden seems like a type of guy who would say the word love like every 4 or 5 words. But other than that, it's not too much difference probably. And a lot more sweating too. A lot more sweating always.
A little bit more.
And Joe says that CBS had an article yesterday with him going round 4, pick 108 to the Raiders. Yeah, I mean, we keep seeing that. I think we've seen him a couple times in the second. We've seen him a couple times in the third. And we've seen him a couple times in the fourth. And I think really third or fourth is really the sweet spot where it is. It depending on how many quarterbacks go early, that could go up because, again, people want to get quarterbacks and there is a drop off at a point. And wherever you have them graded, if we do see 3 quarterbacks go in the first round and then 2 more go in the top of the second, and so you're 5 in before you get to Quinn, and you're now, all right, how many quarterbacks do you have with a passable grade? Is there somebody out there? Is there a 6th, 7th, 8th team who says we didn't get our guy yet, and we didn't expect everybody else to make a mad dash to go get a quarterback, and now we got to go get somebody? That's the way I think you get in the second, but I think third or fourth round is really that sweet spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, I could see anywhere between the 2nd to 4th round. Some of these mocks that have had him going later than that, I just don't pay any attention to at this point. I know we're going to talk about a mock later that I honestly see. I like going into these things a little bit blind so I can have a little bit more, on off the cuff analysis. It's Reed from ESPN, so I imagine he's going to have Quinn going a little later, which is going to piss me off. But those kind of mocks, with certain players, I don't put a lot of stock in. But exactly. The interesting developments that have happened here just in the last few hours with the reports that Cleveland and New York are interested in shopping their first round pick and potentially moving back for somebody to move up to get a different player is probably going to throw a little bit of a wrench into all this anyway. So if that happens, maybe they're a little bit more apt to pick a quarterback in the first round than they were before. Like, let's say New York moves back and switches with, the Raiders at number 6. And now the Giants are sitting at number 6. Maybe then they feel a little bit more comfortable picking as Shedeur Sanders, and then the quarterback run starts, and then that moves things up for Quinn, or maybe it has the opposite effect. I don't know. It's going to be really interesting, but I do agree. I think the sweet spot is early 3rd round to middle 4th round for him. And either way, I think he's going to end up in a good spot.
Yeah, no. And we'll talk a little bit more about, because I do want to talk about that, the trade, the world of everyone now seems to have trades available, but I want to talk about what teams may move up into that a little bit later, because that is the other part of the equation. Matt made a great point the other day on the show. Well, it's great that all these teams are willing to trade back. Who's willing to trade up to go get those? Who has that ability to do it? So I want to get into that in a little bit. Why don't we take a quick break? We'll come back. I want to play you some of the Sark audio from today, talk about what Sark was talking about today, a little bit about the draft, a little bit about spring, a little bit about different things going on. There's some of the transfer portal guys. He mentions that. I know our man Chip Brown asked him about that. Had to ask him twice, but he got the answer he wanted. So we'll get into that when we come back. We'll also talk some NBA, the players still likely to trade up, a whole lot more to come here on Open Gym. Here with myself, Patrick Davis, alongside Matt Galatzan from the Texas Longhorns on SI, here on Texas Sports Unfiltered. It's Open Gym 4 to 6 p.m. here on Texas Sports Unfiltered, as I keep trying to find the thing.
The best sports bar in Austin, Texas, USA, America is Cover 3. They've got everything you're looking for in a great sports bar. TVs everywhere, so there's not a bad seat in the house, and they've got the right games on. You're not going to have to ask the bartenders, the waitresses, the waiters for the game that you want to watch. They know the games that you want to watch, and the food. My goodness, that's what separates Cover 3 from the other sports bars out there. An upscale menu with tons of great items. You got to try the Sean Adams prime rib sandwich. They've got the filet mignon. They've got the fish tacos. Of course, all of the sports bar classics like wings and nachos as well. Great burgers, great salads. I'm telling you, something for everyone. Of course, the full bar happy hour prices, the weekend brunch. You got to check them out. Anderson Lane, Round Rock, and San Antonio, and of course, Cover 2, 183 and Lake Creek. It's Cover 3, dining, spirits, sports.
Hi, I'm Dan Covert with my wife Hayden. Welcome to Covert BK.
Our newest location in the gorgeous Hill Country includes Buick, GMC, Cadillac, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, and Ram, and hundreds of pre-owned and certified vehicles for you to choose from. We have 3 service departments that are ready to take care of your car, truck, or SUV with 86 service bays to accommodate any repair and get you in and out quickly. Come visit us today to select the vehicle you've been dreaming about.
Covert, born and raised in Austin.
Shout out to Leaf Landscape Supply, a full service and wholesale and retail plant nursery and landscape supplier here in the ATX. They have 2 terrific locations. Y'all should check both of them out. If you're up north, hit up the one on Pond Springs Road. If you're down south, hit up the one off Monterey Oaks and 290. If you're looking for large quantities of supplies to fulfill any landscaping job, trendy house plants, a collection of specialty plants and rare plants, Leaf Landscape Supplies, your one-stop shop for everything you need. Go to their website at leaflandscapesupply.com so you can check it out before you get there what you want. And when you do get there and you're in the checkout line, let them know your boy Zay Collier put you on, the boys at Texas Sports Unfiltered, and you get 10% off. 10% off, can't beat that at Leaf Landscape Supply.
Hi, this is Tom McKay, owner of Audiovisual Consultations.
I got this, Dad. This is Camilla McKay, and my dad can help with any TV or stereo needs you have around your house. Just call him, and he will come to you with advice and a great price. And the guys that work for him are awesome. They can install anything, anywhere. So, like my dad says, just relax and smile. We handle all the work.
So just give us a call at 255-8678 or on the web at avconsultations.com.
Back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered as we get into hour 2 of the show here today on a Tuesday afternoon. Joe says, I like to see Shedeur Sanders going to the Saints now that Kellen Moore is their head coach. Is that because you like Shedeur Sanders or because you don't like Shedeur Sanders and you don't like Kellen Moore? I don't know. It's hard to tell with Shedeur at these points. I don't know. But no, I honestly, I think that they'll go Joe. I think they want to go. Jackson Dart. I think that would be where they prefer to go just because I think he fits into what Kellen Moore does a little bit better than what you could see from a Shedeur Sanders, but you never know. And, we'll see. Sark talked about it a little today about how these draft rooms work when he was asked about Kelvin Banks. So, there is always the smoke screens going on as well. But Sark did speak to the media today and was talking about all sorts of stuff all over as we get into the final week of spring training. You have the fan day instead of the spring game that is happening at the end of the week. Sark didn't really let on what's going to be happening with the on-field activities and what the football team will be doing as a part of it. But I know he says that they will be practicing. He does also mention, I don't have the clip up, but he does also mention that he's like, and some of these kids have prom this weekend. He's like, some of these kids should be seniors in high school and they graduated early, but they're still going to go to their prom. So, we have to be aware of that, when practice ends on Saturday, they're going to prom as opposed to staying here. So, you forget sometimes how young some of these guys are that are in this spring training trying to get ready to go. But Sark did talk about a bunch of different things. We'll start with the team this year, and then we'll go into the draft as we continue on. So, he did talk first about the offensive line. He was asked about how he's been able to basically not have to worry about the offensive line in the transfer portal. And out of all the things that they've had to go and get and things to build, that they've had consistency, and now they have another offensive line. They're feeling good about it. But he talked about kind of building and growing an offensive line here at Texas.
Yeah, we've recruited that position pretty well over the years. There was the class that kind of started it with those 7 guys in it. And from there, I think we've brought in players that have kind of fit the profile of the players at the position, guys with high character, guys that fit the stature, whether they're interior players or tackle body types. Kyle's a really good teacher. And again, I think that as much as, we've been fortunate over the past couple of years, we've played a pretty consistent group of guys. Those other guys have been working at their craft, and they're getting challenged, obviously, every single day. The tackles are. We've got some really good edge rushers, and then the interior guys are with some of the young players in our program that are growing, but also some of the transfers that have come in. So it's a heck of a challenge. I would say there's always room for growth, and they're a little bit of kind of you can put a spotlight on the O-line, which really would hold true for our entire team. Our strain to finish needs to improve up there, and it's different when you're actually playing as opposed to when you're practicing. And so we're really this week trying to strain to finish. And yeah, we're trying to finish spring ball, but we're trying to finish every rep. And what does that look like so these guys can understand the intensity that they need to play with. There's a physical intensity, but there's a mental intensity that they got to play with, and that's not just in the run game, that's in pass protection as well. So big point of emphasis for those guys this week.
There, start talking about the offensive line and what they've been working on. How do you build it? It's never really done. You're constantly trying to build. They've been good in recruiting, so they have the guys in there, but he's still saying, we're going through, and, when you're going up against a really good defensive line and edges like they've got, it is a process to try and make sure that they're playing well. You have a mobile quarterback that may hold on to the ball a little bit more than some people would in the past because they have the ability to move. And so you have to finish plays and finish blocks. But still good stuff there from Sark talking about that offensive line. And, it has been a strength for Texas, and you're hoping it continues that way.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that's really interesting about this offensive line that I think he kind of hinted at a little bit, but he didn't say it outright, is this is really the one position under Sark where they haven't really had a lot of transfer bodies.
Yeah.
Right? This is the one position where they've straight up dominated recruiting and did some, did some homework and found the right guys, and they're keeping them around for a long time. And I think that's why they've been so successful along the offensive line for the last couple of years, and why I think that they're going to be really good next year as well, is because all these guys have been in the system. They're all, really ingrained in what Kyle Flood is teaching and the kind of things that Sark likes to do. So I'm really hopeful for this offensive line. It sounds like they have a couple things they need to iron out, but overall, I think it's going to be a pretty solid unit.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. He also talked about the young wide receivers and how they're coming into this, and brought up some different players and was asked about, the freshmen coming in and how they're looking, and the young guys. And he asked about Kalik Lockett and Michael Terry and Jamie French. And he said, don't forget Dalen McCutcheon. He is having a really good spring as well. So a lot of young guys coming in. But Sark talked about how that wide receiver room is progressing.
Yeah, so I think these young guys, I feel for them in some capacity. These 4 guys came in, and they really didn't have a lot of models to look at. Wingo had about 3 practices and then tweaked his hamstring. DeAndre Moore's been out, all spring. He's been doing, light work. And so they've been having to learn, kind of trial by fire, in essence. And so they're getting such valuable reps right now. And you can see the growth, but like a lot of young players, it's kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And then it's 2 steps forward, 1 step back. And now more than ever is them, you just finished practice 13. We probably have very few guys that don't have a bump, a bruise, a nick somewhere. And so now they're fighting through, how do I compartmentalize? My body's not quite 100%, but I need to be mentally 100% and execute those calls. But I've been impressed with those guys. You can definitely see the skill set of all of them. And you can start to see the guys that are picking it up maybe a little quicker than others. And the thing that I'm hopeful that we got a little of today and we get the next 2 days is when their opportunities come, that their natural instincts start to really kick in now, and they start making plays on the ball. I don't expect them to be 100% yet. This is a lot. And you guys have been around us know, the young receivers, it's a process to get them ready to play. But when the ball's in the air, that their instincts and their natural ability really starts to come to fold. And we saw some of that today. I'm really, kind of looking forward to that here Thursday and Saturday to, allow these guys to play some. And if they're wrong, they're wrong. That's okay. We can coach that. But who's going to go make some plays? Who's going to make the play on the ball and the 50-50, those contested catches, 3rd down, red area, those types of things.
So, yeah, this is a young wide receiver group, and I think at the end you start to see it, where he's kind of going into no one's in the circle of trust yet. They're all having good springs. They're all doing well, but I don't trust a one of them yet. So they have to start proving that they can get into that circle of trust. Now, luckily for these guys, because of the longer season, because of, where they're at with the roster, they're going to get playing time early and have more opportunities on the playing field in regular season play to earn that circle of trust by being able to get on. And even if they're not catching balls, just being able to run routes correctly and being where they're supposed to be and doing the things, blocking downfield, all of those pieces. If they do those, even if they're not catching passes, they will get closer and closer to that circle of trust. But it does feel like we have a ton of talent. These guys are starting to figure it out. We threw a lot at them, but none of them are quite, no one is broken ahead, because what you want to hear is one person where you go, well, there we got 4 guys, and this one guy is now, he's in the circle. But it feels like all 4 are kind of right there, and you just got to see which ones break through.
Yeah, and obviously this is why we preached for so long that they needed to bring in a guy in the portal, which is what they did with with Mosley. So, I still think these receivers are going to be fine. They're all super talented. The fact that it's so much more common these days for all these freshmen to get on campus for spring football and go through all these workouts, and that you rarely see a guy who comes in the summer anymore, I think is a huge deal for this program in particular, just because there's so much turnover at the position. And I agree. I would like to hear that one guy's kind of separating himself, from what I've have sort of kept my ear to the ground and heard, Dalen McCutcheon's probably the furthest along from what I can tell out of all those guys. But, you know, I still expect Jamie French and Khalil Lockett to have an impact. Out of that group, I think it's going to take Michael Terry probably a little bit longer, just because they're still trying to figure out how to use that guy, you know, because he could do so many different things, and I'm sure they're still trying to figure out what the best role for him is in terms of, you know, where to put him on the field. He's going to start at receiver, but, you know, where at receiver is going to be an interesting thing going forward. But look, I think they're in a good position. They're going to be a little top heavy, as we saw back in 2023 with Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, and Jordan Whittington. You know, I think it's going to be more of that kind of thing rather than what you saw last year. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. I think that, you know, it's going to give those guys a little bit more of an opportunity to grow some continuity with Arch, and you know, just because they're going to be on the field that much more. But it's also going to give the young guys a chance to sit back and learn from some other really talented guys, like, you know, and really good leaders like DeAndre Moore.
No, and I think it's going to give them that opportunity when they get on the field to try and earn it a little bit more, because they will get on the field. But the question is how much and which guys are getting out there. And, you know, being able to sit in a film room and not having to have everything broken down necessarily by the media as much, but having it by our coaches in a room to say, you kind of broke off on that route and you didn't hustle early here, or you got knocked off by your defender early on. And so you get some playing time where you're not having to necessarily be fully in the spotlight. And because your production isn't there, you're being told year one that you're a bust. And, you know, like, I'm 18 years old. Give me a chance to get my feet underneath me. So I think that there's some points in it that'll work itself out well, but you could tell they did want to bring in some other targets in the transfer portal, which Sark also brought up and talked about a little bit about those portal additions, and a couple guys you feel a little bit better about putting in the circle of trust, throwing the football to them a little bit more this year. And while you start to develop some of these players, and again, we saw Ryan Wingo, he was in the circle of trust pretty early, but he was in and out of it all season long. And by the end of the season, they were really working to try and get him there. He had some injury issues, so he didn't quite get to be where he wanted to be by the end of the season. But you expect at least one of these young guys to be at the end of the season cracking through there and being a player that when you get to the playoffs, which you hope to be in again, that's a guy you can go get it. But here's Sark talking about the transfer portal additions on that offensive side of the ball.
Emmitt Mosley is a guy that we were recruiting hard going into his senior season. He was high on our board. We had high hopes for. We had a great relationship with he and his family. He ended up injuring his knee before his senior season, and we kind of backed off of it. To his credit, man, he worked his tail off, got himself healthy, and had a really, really solid freshman year there at Stanford. And so when they made the coaching change and he decided to go in the portal, we just felt like he was a really natural fit. You know, he's got experience, but yet as a younger player to fill the void in that room. He's got a really good head on his shoulders, great character, great work ethic, so we're excited about him. Jack is a guy, you know, we were really looking for a tight end that could be an every down player, a guy that could be an inline blocker, could be a guy that was utilized, split out, that ran a multitude of routes, that had the speed to separate, to create explosive plays. And when you watch his tape at Cal, you know, he played for 3 different coordinators in 3 years there. So he was used in a lot of different ways. So when you really put the tape together over 3 years, he kind of fits all the things we ask of a tight end to do here. And I felt like we needed a veteran presence in that room. It's a young room. It's a talented room. And so to have kind of a veteran in that room for the Spencer Shannons, the Amari Winstons, those types of guys, the Jordan Washingtons to look to of what it looks like, because all those young guys are going to play for us. You know, I mean, I think that Spencer in line has been a really good asset for us. Amari Winston's had a fantastic spring. We see his playmaking ability. It's unfortunate we lost Jordan early in spring, but we all know we have high hopes for him. I just think that Jack is a nice addition for those guys to look to about, you know, being versatile. The more you can do in our system, the better served you are at tight end.
Yeah, no, this is tight end position, especially what we've been talking about and what everybody's been talking about. It's the every down tight end. You didn't necessarily have a guy that you could put in and no one knows what you're running. Mm-hmm. And that kind of felt like you were going to be switching guys out and everybody could tell pass play, run play. Is this guy going downfield? Is he, you had some specialty guys more that are filling out, being able to do everything. Now you bring in someone who can do everything. And then it's cool to hear the story that they were looking at Mosley, but the injury maybe pulled him off a little bit, and he worked himself back into contention. And with Stanford having their coach gone, he said, all right, I'm back available. Let's go. Let's reintroduce the conversation of me coming into Texas. So good to hear about those guys.
Yeah, and the stuff about Mosley first, that just gives me more confidence about what he can do in this offense because they already know him so well and they know what he can do. They know his strengths. And it's not just a case of like, oh, okay, we're watching his film from last year and we think he can do these certain things. It's like they have a pre-existing relationship with him and they're well aware of what he can do even before he got to Stanford. So that gives me a lot of hope that he's going to get into that circle of trust, pretty dang quick. And he's going to be a pretty key part of the offense. Probably opposite of Ryan Wingo with DeAndre Moore working in the slot. So I think that's going to be a pretty formidable core there. And then, everything that he said about that tight end is just exactly what Gunnar Helm was last year.
Yep.
And it's a good shout by you too. It really felt like a lot of specialty guys, but now you have the guy that, on 3rd and 11 or 4th and 13, when Ohio State's bringing the house and Arch has to hit a pass over the top, he can signal over to Jack Endries, okay, I want you to stay in and block here.
Yeah.
And he can do that. He understands what's going on. He knows the protections and he can do that kind of thing, but he can also go downfield. He can work across the middle. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically Sark saying, yeah, this is just basically what we had with Gunnar Helm last year. We really wanted to replicate that. So this is a perfect fit for us.
Exactly. He also spoke about the edge room and where they are at right now, which is a place for Texas where for years this edge room was not where it needed to be. And it was a constant worry. And then last season it got where it wanted to be. And this year it looks to be even better than that with Colin Simmons coming back for another year, Ethan Burke coming back. We still have Colton Vosick and Umazula is in there. I mean, it is just a room with a ton of talent. And that's not to mention Trey Moore, who's going to be coming up and down on that as well. This is Sark here today talking about that edge room.
Coach, can you talk a little bit about the edge room after 13 practices?
Yeah.
Obviously headlined by Colin, but who else in that room?
Yeah, I think Ethan Burke's had a great spring. I think Colin has really come on the latter part here of spring. He was a little limited early on, has really come on. I think the versatility of Trey Moore and Brad Spence have really helped in that room. We've actually even played Justice Terry some there as a big defensive end behind Burke. And so it's a nice room that way. Early on in spring, I thought Zena was playing really well. He got nicked up, but we'll get him back. He's fine. We'll get Vosick back. I think we've got a really versatile room that can play a bunch of different styles, and it allows us and allows PK to do some different things with the front. Also knowing behind those guys, Anthony Hill can do some things off the edge, which we know. I think he has 7.5 sacks or something last year as well. So, again, if we can play really good inside and then now have the rush that we've been clamoring for here for the last couple of years and really came to life last season, that can make things hard on an offense, right? When you play really good against the run, you can get after a quarterback and then mix your coverages and get after the ball in the back end. That generally bodes well to play pretty good defense.
Once again, the edge room is going to be a huge factor for Texas this year, and the fact that they are going to make this offensive line better and they're going to make everybody have to work is, I think, this, more underrated part of what this edge room is going to do is just you have a new offensive line, and now you're going up against one of the best edge rooms in the country and one of the best rushers in the country for sure in Colin Simmons, and you're having to defend that every play. It's going to, build you a little bit tougher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought one other thing that was really interesting about what he said too was, or really two other things, was that Brad Spence is getting involved in there, not just Trey Moore. So that's pretty. And the fact that they're playing Justice Terry as a big defensive end is really interesting to me because he's such an athletic specimen that you want to find a way to put him into the lineup as often as you can, even if it's not just a defensive tackle.
Yeah.
So, that's just going to make that room that much better, which is kind of scary for opposing offensive lines. But, with the makeup that they have with, Colin Simmons and Ethan Burke and Colton Vosick and Zena Imeo Zulu and those guys alone is good enough. But having a guy like Trey Moore who can kind of fill a Jalen Walker role like at Georgia, where he's primarily a linebacker that runs sideline to sideline, but you can also bring him on the pass rush at any given time, and he's one of the best pass rushers in the country. And then you have Anthony Hill who can do it all. I mean, this group is going to be super, super formidable. And like you said, it's just going to make the offensive line better. It's going to make the defensive backs better because they're not going to have to stay in coverage as long. I mean, this is going to be, last year we talked about how the strength of the defense was the secondary. And Sark mentioned that the secondary was really good this year, but I think it's going to kind of flip, and the edge room is going to be the part of this defense that we look at and we're like, okay, this is really something special.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's going to be a lot of fun this year. And then another player who's going to be fun as they continue on, even in baseball and football. He was asked about Jonah Williams as well, and seeing if Jonah Williams was going to, I believe the question was, are you going to get Jonah Williams back even? Because he looks like he's doing pretty good out there at baseball.
I hope. The guy's out there looking like Juan Soto right now. But pump for him, everybody's path and journey to college is different. But when you think about Jonah's, this guy should be a senior in high school right now. He should be playing at ball and hitting off of those pitchers. And he's playing in some big time series right now, and he's getting a great opportunity. He's maximizing it, and I got a chance to run into him yesterday at the tank, and it was just good to see him. But they got a big series coming up this weekend, I know, and I know he's looking forward to it.
Can you do both for 2-3 years?
I mean, back in the day, that's what guys used to do a lot. It wasn't as uncommon, and I think it's really important. Slosh and I work well together, and we've got a great relationship. I did the dual sport thing there for a couple years, and so I respect it. I respect what he's going through. We're maximizing his meeting time with us when he has that time. And then there'll be that natural transition, however far they go, and then transition him back into football. But, guys like Jonah, those elite athlete types, this is all he knows. His whole life he's been playing multiple sports. He's been doing multiple things. As long as we can create enough balance for him, I think he'll be fine.
There's Sark talking about Jonah Williams and his unique ability to be a two-sport athlete, playing some for Texas over the weekend and playing with Texas baseball. Be interesting to see if he plays in this big series against the Aggies. But I think this is why Sark is, the unique coach he is, and why Jonah Williams and why recruits really like him is, instead of being stuck up on things have to be my way and there's one way to do it and the right way to do it is you guys care about football, and if you're a football player, you need to be a football player. Says, no, I get that this guy is immensely talented and a unique talent, and I'd love to have him on my team. And so I have to compromise a little bit to let him do what he wants to do. Then me and Schloss will talk to each other. We both want him at Texas, so let's make this work and try and find the best solution to get out of it. And that's the way you win, is by finding solutions as opposed to just everything has to be one way.
Yeah, and I think that part of this too is the fact that he's okay with Jonah not necessarily being here this spring because he's got a really good safety room already.
Yes.
So I think that probably plays a little bit of a role into it. I know he's going to want to get him back, and he would prefer that he goes straight football eventually. But when you've already got a safety room that's 4 deep, you feel pretty good about your chances already. So you don't need to press this guy to get back too soon and sort of chip away at that relationship when you don't necessarily need to. I expect that by the time push comes to shove, that Jonah will choose football. But for now, good for him. I'm going to take that Juan Soto quote and I'm going to turn it into a story here in a little bit, and we're gonna get some clicks on that for sure. But you love to hear it, because part of the thing about college sports that is supposed to be so much fun for these kids is just living their college experience and doing the things that make them happy, as opposed to everything being about money and that kind of thing. And this guy has grown up his entire life playing baseball and football, and that's kind of been a dream of his. So it's nice to hear that both Schloss and Sark are kind of embracing that for him as well.
Yeah, I mean, and that's when you find unique individuals. I've always hated dream killers. And people that are like, you can't do that. It'll never work. Like, no, let's see if it'll work. And you'll find out, he'll find out by the end of this season, going to next season, is this too much? Now that I know what the workload is for both of these, is it too much? Do I have to pick one, or can I continue to do it? But we won't know until he goes and tries to do it. So you don't kill the dream until then. And you have two really good coaches there who are understanding of that and trying to be as usable as possible to help him get through that, which I really like. Another interesting question he got asked was, everyone has areas to improve. We know Arch Manning does walk on water. We know Arch Manning has done unbelievable things and is probably, going to be the greatest quarterback who's ever played football at any level of all time. So where could he improve? And what could Arch Manning work on? So it was nice to hear Sark maybe ground it a little bit and talk about things that Arch could do to improve his play during spring and over the break as we come up to it.
Well, I think one is, and this is going to sound crazy because I think he's a great leader, but we continue to push him from a leadership standpoint. This has been a great spring for Arch because he didn't get put out there on the field his first spring as a starting quarterback with three vets that know the offense inside and out and are fixing things on the move. He's having to really lead and manage and coach in between plays, and we keep trying to push him at that level because he is a fantastic leader. And he doesn't need to wait, and that's probably the first thing that we're pushing upon him is what is his leadership skills and getting all of that out of him. The second thing is within the confines of the offense, utilizing his athleticism. It's last year, especially in the second half of the season, his athleticism was called upon because we called for those things in specific moments. Now he's the starter, and now he's operating an offense. We don't want him to leave his athleticism to the side. We want him to use that athleticism in critical moments, third downs, red area, things of that nature. So it's finding that right balance to do that. I thought he did a great job of that this morning on a couple critical third downs. He used his legs to extend a couple drives, which is going to be a key component to his game, but really it's going to be a key component to our game that people now have to defend us a little bit differently.
Yeah, I appreciate both those. The leadership, which is not hugely surprising because this is something that he is going to have to continue to go. And until he gets into those tough moments in games, you're just kind of preparing him for, at a certain point, it's going to become really difficult. And at a certain point, it's going to become more than you can handle in a moment. How do you lead in those moments when the things are not going right? Or maybe you're having your worst game of the season, or, you throw a couple passes that tip off hands and now you got 2 picks, but you didn't throw 2 picks. How do you handle that type of leadership, that kind of stuff? And then, using athleticism. I think I love to hear Sark say this because we know Sark has been very big on being a pocket passer, and I don't want my number one quarterback to be a runner. I don't want any of those things. So him talking about how can we use this athleticism, but also not get you killed? Like, how do we keep you on the field, but also utilize something that you have a unique ability to do? I'm glad they're working on that because that's something that you kind of worried about with Sark and Arch is he going to take away that superpower from Arch because he just doesn't like that, doesn't want to put his quarterback at risk.
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah. And, it's really interesting because this is going to be the first time that we see a Sark offense that has that kind of wrinkle with it, right? Like Casey Thompson could run a little bit. Hudson Card could run a little bit. Quinn had his moments, but Arch he can fly, man. So I don't think they're going to use it too much. I do think that they're just going to use it in specific spots and sort of tell him to rely on that when he needs to, as opposed to calling a lot of design quarterback runs. Like, I think people expect that you're going to see a lot of quarterback design runs. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think it's going to be more of a circumstantial situation with those kinds of things. But at the end of the day, this is they talk about 5-tool players in baseball, and at the quarterback position, this is about the closest thing that Sark's ever going to have his hands on to having a 5-tool player. Yes. He can sling it. He can run it. He can read the defense. He can do it all. And it's going to be really interesting to watch. I think it's really going to be able to tap another level of Sark's play calling ability and the way that this offense is able to operate once he gets this chemistry with the receivers and once he figures out, all the little ins and outs of being the starter and how things are going to change for him. I think that that's something that people forgot about last year when they were just saying, start Arch, damn it. It's not that simple. A guy can't go out there and just, with the game plan that they've had all season long and just come in and, take college football by storm and do all these different things and completely change and all. It's very rare that something like that can happen. I think now that they have an entire spring and summer to sort of prepare themselves and reallocate their focus in other areas, it's going to really come to fruition, and you're going to see what Arch is really about next season.
No, and I'll honestly be honest. I think that it was a really good thing for Arch to do some of the runs he had where you used him in that sense to maybe ground him a little bit more in the fact of in high school and other places, you've been able to outrun everybody, but they're going to kill you when you get you took some hits last year and you try to do some things and you felt what these hits are going to be. So maybe you understand why we're worried about it. Now you popped up, which is great, but you understand a little bit more of why you can't take 7 or 8 or 9 of those a game, why you have to be a little bit more careful, because now you understand what's happening, that in high school, that middle linebacker was never catching you, but now he knows a better angle. And when he catches you, he's going to do it with malice and bad intentions. And so you maybe don't want to ever be touched by that guy. So I think that's a good thing that he's got going forward. Sark also spoke about the message to the players before the break, as this will be the last week of spring practice. They finish up on Saturday. We got the whole fan day happening, but then the players basically get some time. They finish up school, they get some time off. And this is always a coach's worry, because you're not supposed to have a ton of contact with them. You're supposed to let them do their things. And you just don't want them to get into trouble. You don't want them to take any setbacks. And so you like them to get better and do all the right things, but there's a little ground in between. Sark talked about the message and kind of what he's telling these players to do in that break while he doesn't have control of the program.
Yeah, I think there's such a fine line now. These guys, it's year round. It's 12 months a year, especially the way we play into January every year, and they get done playing in the college football playoff, they're right back in school, and then right back into winter conditioning program. And so I do think May is an important month for them to kind of take a little bit of a deep breath, but also maintaining their body, maintaining their connection to the playbook, maintaining working at their craft, but also finding some balance in life, I think is important, because they're going to come back in June and July and they're going to work really hard. And then here comes August, and next thing you know, we're kicking the ball off August 30th in Columbus. So I do talk to that, and we'll talk obviously more to it at the end of this week and into next week before May comes. But there's a lot of work to be done before that too. We got to finish spring ball. We got to finish this semester in the classroom really well. But I think it's important that they get around their families a little bit. Some guys need to rehab their bodies to make sure they're as healthy as they can be for June. But we ask a lot of them, and that's the calendar that we have in college football right now. And so we do need to maximize those breaks when we get them within parameters, right? We talked about guardrails last week on another issue, but having some guardrails up of making sure they're doing, about 3 workouts a week, maintaining their body so that when we come back, it's not, back to square one.
It's that fine line. You need to get some rest. You need to relax some, but also do not gain weight. Do not get out of shape. Do not put yourself in a situation where when you show up at camp, all the work you did in spring to move up that depth chart and get yourself in a position you want to be in to succeed. And if you show up out of shape, you drop right down that depth chart again. And, I know Rob Babers always used to talk about DeWayne Aquino would have the room set up, and he would set you up that the first desk was the starter, the second desk was the next guy, and the third desk is the next guy in the depth chart. And then some days you'd walk in and he'd be like, no, that's not your desk anymore. And you'd be moved, and you were fourth, or you were third and now you're fourth, or you were second, now you're third. And it made you work harder. I think there's somewhat of that mentality of just don't move back. You can't, I'm not saying you have to move forward, not saying you have to have this crazy work ethic where you're going out and killing yourself every day. Go spend some time with family. Go spend some time with your friends. Enjoy your time off, because it's going to be another 9-10 month grind once you get back. But also don't let it go just completely to shit.
Yeah, and I think this is where you start to figure out what the leadership of the team looks like, because this is really where Quinn would shine in the offseason. Is he would keep guys in check. He would keep guys, even if they weren't in the same city. If a guy was at home in California visiting his family, Quinn would shoot him a text, be like, hey, you better get those workouts in today, or whatever the case may be. So, you're going to start to see guys like Arch and DeAndre Moore and Anthony Hill probably does it already, but those guys kind of come to the forefront and be like, hey guys, we got to keep this in line. This is our culture. This is what we do. And I think Sark's kind of speaking to that a little bit. Like, we don't want to be Georgia, do we? Where 25 guys are getting speeding tickets in the off season and, we're playing catch up once they get back. I mean, I think that this sort of mentality is the thing that has kind of set Texas apart over the last couple of years. It really set them apart in the Big 12, and it helped them get kind of a foothold in the SEC very early, is because they're really good at doing these kinds of things. And that's the kind of culture that he preaches. So,
yeah. And that's too, you talk about the leadership and saying we necessarily can't be talking to you every day, but your position leaders can. And the leaders on the team, you can call them if you need some help, or if you're worried about something. Here's the leaders you can talk to. Here's your seniors. Here's the guys who have been there and done that. And we have a good group of people and leaders now that even when we're not there, you're not alone. You're not stuck by yourself having to be the only one worried about it. We have people that are going to be accountable for each other, and you're going to be talking to other people. And we have leaders that you can check on. So just be good. Just be good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I really want to see who those leaders are, but the good thing is I'm pretty sure that their strength and conditioning coach can be in contact. I think he's like the one exception to that rule. So I think they're going to put a lot on him as well to kind of keep these guys in line a little bit and send them some workout programs and stuff like that. But it'll be really interesting to see with so many players going to the NFL is who's going to step up into that leadership role. It sounds like Arch already is. It sounds like DeAndre Moore is already there. Anthony Hill's there, but who else does it is what I want to say.
I know he talked a little bit about Colin Simmons saying that he wanted to step up into it. And he's like, I'm all for Colin Simmons. He's like, there's older guys in the program. Like Michael Taft is a leader. We know that. Mm-hmm. But, is Colin Simmons going to be able to step up into that role a little bit? And for some of the younger guys, be more of a guy to say, man, I was doing this last year. I get the struggle of it because a year ago I was in your same spot, and now we're in now I can get it. So I think you're going to have leaders from all sides because guys want to be they want to be that leader. And so some of the young guys who are really competitive are already trying to step into that role as well. Sark also spoke about the draft a little bit and had some questions about the draft, including this one where we cut in a little bit during the question for Kelvin Banks, because he has been all over the board. Some people really going after him, some people not. So here's Sark when he was asked about what he thought about Kelvin Banks sliding in a lot of these mock drafts.
Yeah, I don't get it.
I was going to say, does that surprise you? I don't get it. So you say it's a prototypical.
What you guys got to know, right? Everybody plays coy when it comes to the draft. And a lot of times we'll leak things to you guys thinking that this is what they're going to do or not do to try to get somebody else to do something differently because they have an idea of what they're trying to do. Sometimes that's the benefit of a player of ours. Sometimes that might hurt a player of ours. But there's so many tactics that go into the draft. And I only know this when I was a really young coach. I was 29 years old, and I was coaching quarterbacks for the Oakland Raiders. And we had an owner by the name of Al Davis. And we used to sit in these draft meetings, and at the end of the meeting, he would always stand up and say, what stays in here stays in here. It's like it's only our lives. And when you think of it from that perspective, for the owners, the GMs, the head coaches, man, they're trying to do everything strategically to get that one player, man, that they've got highlighted on their board. Can we get this guy at 16? right? And how do we manipulate this board to get this player to be there at 16? Maybe we have to draft up. Maybe we have to trade back. Maybe we have to get another team to think we're going to take another player, so they take him at 15 so we can get the player we want at 16. And so there's so much strategy involved in it that I try not to listen too much to what's just said and watch the draft unfold. But as it pertains to Kelvin Banks, as I've told everybody, I think this guy is a premier tackle in the NFL. He's got the right physical measurables. He's got the right mental makeup. He's reliable. You can count on him. He's there every day. He's emotionally stable, which you have to be at tackle in the NFL. You got to play every play like this. You can't ride an emotional roller coaster. So, again, whoever gets him is going to get a guy that's probably going to play 10, 12 years in the NFL, knock on wood, barring injury, and have a great career.
So yeah, the part apparently got cut off, but it was the Kelvin Banks when they asked him about it, and his first response was, "Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. That's silly." And so it is basically alluding to things we've talked about on the show, that there's a possibility that people are just trying to tank him so they can get him, and that they believe it. We keep seeing things. I saw one that there was a scout today who said that he shouldn't be drafted in the first round. That he is that if the Bears draft him at 10, they've made a horrible decision, that he is not a good tackle. He will never be a good tackle in the NFL. He has too many problems. And they're like, what were you watching? What did you watch that makes you think this? And I get, you could say there's things he needs to work on. Like, sure. That's with every single player in the draft right now. There's things they need to work on. But to pretend that he did not, and I mean, there are a lot of people are really focusing on Texas doing poorly against Georgia twice. And they're really focused, and they said Texas did poorly against Georgia twice, so clearly Kelvin Banks was the problem. And reality was, it wasn't even twice. It was one half that was really, really bad against Georgia. They played one half that was abysmal against Georgia. But those sacks that Kelvin Banks allowed, if you watch the film, aren't necessarily fully on Kelvin Banks. And a lot of that game was not put on Kelvin Banks. There's a lot of people that have these weird, outlandish takes. And I side more on the side of Sark, that there's teams out there who are really pushing narratives to let guys slip because they would love to get Kelvin Banks a little bit later on. But that's Sark. The only logical solution Sark could have is a guy who's coaching for the last 3 years. I don't know if I mean, just there's no other left tackle I would want to have for the last 3 seasons. So I don't know why in the NFL they wouldn't want him.
Yeah, and that scout that you referenced, who thinks it would be that Kelvin Banks should be a second-round pick or shouldn't be a first-round pick or whatever, I think he was probably watching Cam Williams and got them confused, because that's the only logical explanation for that, I think. But yeah, I mean, look, nobody knows this player better than Steve Sarkisian and Kyle Flood. They both know what he can do. It's very, very obvious that he is a top tackle in this draft. I still think he's the best one. I think he's going to end up being a top 10 pick. I was going to save this for later, but the guy that you were referencing who was talking about the Georgia games was Albert Breer at Sports Illustrated. First of all, Albert Breer, great reporter, one of the best in the world at what he does. I want to preface this by saying that might be the worst take of his career, because it's one thing to say, oh, he has some flaws in his footwork, or his hand placement's not great, or whatever the case may be. But he doubles down on this more than once in an article that he wrote today, saying that Jalen Walker at Georgia got the best of Kelvin Banks twice, to a point where he might have cost Banks some money. And then he goes on to say the whooping Banks took at the hands of Walker and the Bulldogs this fall in the regular season and the SEC title game did give teams some pause. And the thing is, Albert, Kelvin didn't play in the SEC championship game. So you obviously didn't watch the game. You don't know where you're getting this information, because he didn't play in that game. Trevor Gooseby started at left tackle and played every damn snap of that game. And the sacks that he gave up in against Georgia in the first game Both of those sacks, one of them didn't even count against him, I don't think, were plays where Quinn stepped up into the pocket and got tackled and got sacked behind the line because he tried to step up and run through the hole, or a play where Kelvin Banks held on and blocked Jalen Walker for a good 5 seconds, which is longer than you're expected to block anybody at any level of football ever. And Quinn just didn't get rid of the ball. So eventually he lost that rep because that's what will happen. So it's just, that's a kind of a microcosm of everything that's been going wrong with Kelvin Banks in this whole pre-draft process. Is people are just, they're hearing things, they're not watching film, they're not doing their due diligence, they're not doing their research. And Sark just called them all out on a hot mic and said, y'all are crazy. This dude's legit. He's the best tackle in the draft. He's going to be a really damn good NFL player for a really long time.
Yeah, this was it, and I love it. It is just feeling crazy. And what's funny is now everyone's going, he's sliding up the board, and you go, you don't think that he should have just been up there the whole time, and that you guys made it up that he was going to slide down because you had to have a story, and somewhere along the line the consensus became he needed to move down, and then you all realize that's not what you're hearing from teams, because as teams, I watched the Jerry Jones press conference today, the Cowboys press conference today, and they were like, we just got our board done. So they're like, we've just finished up our board. And so teams hadn't really finished up boards yet. They were grading people and talking about it. But now that teams are getting their boards ready and teams are ranking everybody, now you're starting to see Kelvin Banks climb back up in the rumors, because he never really went down. But now that teams are starting to solidify where they're at, now we're starting to hear rumors that he's getting a top 10 grade and he's getting a top 15 grade, as opposed to, well, he's maybe a first rounder. You're like, I don't know. And all these other guys who've climbed up, you could say the potential's there and there's a lot of things to really like about them, but none of them seem to have done and have the resume that Kelvin Banks has for his years and what he's been able to do for a team that has consistently won with him as a left tackle. So, it does just seem silly at a certain point. And I know as Longhorns, people who cover Longhorns, this is just craziness, because we've watched every snap of Kelvin Banks' career. And when people talk about certain things, you go, I don't know what snaps you were watching. I don't know where you were. I don't know which ones you honey picked out of this one. I can't tell you. I have not watched all of Will Campbell, so I can't tell you everything about him. But I can tell you about Kelvin Banks. And there's no way that there's 5 tackles better than him in this draft.
There's no way there's 2 tackles better than him in this draft. I mean, it's just not possible.
Sark also spoke about Quinn Ewers at the draft coming up here at his press availability today. Here's Sark about Quinn Ewers.
Well, it's exciting. The quarterback thing, obviously, just because of my history, it kind of hits home a little bit differently. But I surely want every position group to have guys getting drafted, right? I mean, the fact that we've got more D linemen going in the draft again this year. We've got another running back in the draft this year. We've got more receivers. We've got DBs, and so the fact that we're putting players in the NFL at multiple positions, and now here's our first quarterback, I think is a good sign for us that we're developing players at multiple positions, especially at that one, because it is so critical to the success of any football team. If you don't have a quarterback, it's really hard. And we've been fortunate to have a good one for the last 3 years, and Quinn is going to make a great pro. And now we've got to recreate it here with Arch and then Trey and KJ. So it's all part of the process. But I'm proud of Quinn. He's worked really hard. Somebody's going to get a very good player.
So Quinn Ewers, not a little bit different approach of it than Kelvin Banks, but yes. This is, trust me, they're going to get a good player. We know what Quinn Ewers has done. This is, again, I think he was asked too about this, and what the Quinn Ewers was, does it mean more that this is your first quarterback that's going to go to be taken in the draft, that's your first quarterback at Texas? And he's like, yeah, that's great. But he's like, we got a lot of players going. I'm excited for everybody. So I think we'll see, where Quinn goes will depend on how much prouder he is. If Quinn Ewers is a 2nd-round pick, that becomes a lot bigger. If Quinn Ewers is a 5th-round pick, then you drop that one back a little bit on your CV, and you put that one down. Oh no, we don't. We coach Quinn Ewers. He took us to two playoffs and did a great job for us. We don't mention his draft stock because that's not going to be the point. You mention Arches because Arch is going to be very high.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to end up being an issue for him either way. I think Quinn's probably going to go second or third, fourth round at the latest. But, it kind of just sounds to me, and this is just me kind of reading in between the lines and speculating a little bit, but it kind of sounds like he's just tired of talking about Quinn, not because he, is tired of talking about Quinn, just because he's tired of the questions about him.
Yeah.
Like, look, I've been as faithful to this guy as I could possibly be and put him in so many positions to win. And he guided our team to these certain points for a reason. Like, I didn't change quarterbacks for a reason, because we know that he's a good quarterback and we believe in him. So yeah, like, what do you expect me to say? Of course I think he's going to be good, because I truly believe it. And that's just kind of, he's just kind of being a little more blunt about it than he is with some of these other players who, simply just didn't get the shine that Quinn got necessarily because Quinn is a quarterback. And, Cam Williams is a right tackle who's kind of on the fringe, and Vernon Broughton and Alfred Collins are defensive tackles and that kind of thing. So I think he's just kind of trying to do that kind of thing instead of just overly gloat about how special he thinks Quinn is.
Yeah. Then finally, last clip we'll play for you before we take a break here and get to some NBA talk before we get out of here. Sark was asked about what player is he most proud of, and what player getting drafted out of his regime here at Texas does he really feel like that's the one you mentioned to players. That's the guy you talk about, not necessarily your first round picks, but the guys who earned it and got the pick later on. And it's an interesting answer that Sark gave here for the player that they really talk about the most that was drafted, or that was an NFL player out of Texas, I should say.
Well, I think the one, and again, you're a little bit of the byproduct of the team success that you have. And, the more team success you have, it generally is, the individual, draft picks start to go up. When we were 5-7, we had 0 draft picks. You go 13-3, you send 14 guys to the combine. You're 12-2, you have 11 guys drafted. But the guy that we continually highlight is Brandon Schooler. Because if we were in a 5-7 team, let's say we're 8-4 or 9-3, he's probably a draft pick. But because we were 5-7, and maybe not as many people come to pro day to watch your guys work out and things, but all that guy's done in the NFL is found a role and found a way. And he's a special team demon. He plays his tail off. He's found a role with the Patriots, and a guy that is very well respected. And so I think that serves well for a lot of our guys, because everybody wants to be a first-round pick. But just because you're a first-round pick doesn't mean you're going to play in the NFL for a long time. It doesn't mean you're going to get a second contract if you don't perform, if you don't work at your craft. And so for Schooler to be on a second contract now and just getting paid is awesome, because what's his role? He was an undrafted free agent who excels on special teams. And so when we place a premium and a value on special teams in our room now, man, he's an easy guy to point to about this is how you go about your business. And so he's probably the guy that we're probably most excited about. And we only had him for 1 year, but again, he's a great example of what it looks like. It's not about when you get picked. It's not about where you get picked. It's about what you do with the opportunity when you get it.
Love that. It is very on message for Sark, but love that he brought up Brandon Schooler, and it's like, look, man, this is what it's about. If you want to play in the NFL, not everyone, if you're not projected to go as a top 2-3 pick in the draft, first couple rounds, you never know if that dream is going to come true. This is a guy who probably should have been drafted, but he's got a second contract, and that is what you want to be. And football is a second contract in the NFL. Very few people get that second contract that are desired after that. It was just a really cool thing to see him mention that. And it is the message of Sark's team and that culture. That's really what they try and build.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it sends a message to some of these guys that are coming in this year into the draft who, might not be as enthusiastic about where their draft standing is, going into it, with like a Mo Blackwell or a Silas Bolden or a guy like that. So those are guys that can really look at a Brendan Schooler and say, okay, we have a shot here if we just do things the right way.
Exactly. Very cool to see. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, get to some NBA, our meathead of the day, and more when we come back here on Open Gym. Myself, Patrick Davis, alongside Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI, right here on Texas Sports Unfiltered.
Hi, I'm Hayden Covert. Welcome to Covert Buick GMC of Bee Cave. Your home in the Hill Country for new and pre-owned Buick and GMC vehicles. With beautiful inventory arriving daily, including the GMC Yukon, Sierra 1500, and Buick Enclave, you'll be certain to find the perfect vehicle at an incredible deal. Our service department is also open for all your vehicle maintenance needs. Visit us today for a test drive. Covert, born and raised in Austin. We are professional grade.
Altstadt Beer, the best beer that you can find all throughout the great state of Texas. Y'all know I've been a fan of Altstadt for years now, and if you try it, I think you will be too. If you've already tried it, you know exactly what I am talking about. Altstadt is brewed locally in Fredericksburg, but available all over the state of Texas. So if you're tuned in Austin, San Antonio, Dallas, Houston, it does not matter. You can find Altstadt at a local grocery store or liquor store. They've got a bunch of different brews, something for every beer drinker out there. The lager, the Kolsch, those are their two flagship beers, both award winners. They are fantastic. The Altstadt Light sacrifices on calories but does not sacrifice on the taste. They've got great pills, tons of great seasonals as well. I'm telling you, one sip and you won't go back to the other beers you've been drinking in the past. It is the official beer of BK. It should be the official beer of you as well. It's Altstadt Beer. No impurities, no regrets.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. Do you have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Or online at avconsultations.com.
All right, back here on Open Gym on Texas Sports Unfiltered, getting close to the end of the show. I want to get into some NBA talk, and as we get into two really good games last night, the Pistons even up their series with the Knicks with a 194 victory. This really felt like a game where the Knicks always felt like they could come back in it. They always just felt like they were right back on it. They were going to be able to come back and win this game. So they never really made the big push to go after anything. You saw Karl-Anthony Towns come back to earth. He only had 10 points in the game. No one really stood out. Mikal Bridges had a better game in this. And Jalen Brunson, of course, put up 37. That guy's always going to go to work and try and get it done. But the rest of the Knicks kind of stood off and felt like they could do it without having to put out full effort. And when it came down to the stretch, they missed shots and the Pistons made shots, and they are able to get the big win. And Detroit now in the series, going back to Detroit 1-1. The Knicks still have a better team. They'll still win this series. Almost, I'd say 70-80% odds they win this series. But Detroit making it a point and learning some things pretty early on here in their new regime or their new run with Cade Cunningham and this new Pistons.
Yeah, and I said this, I think it was yesterday, maybe the day before. I guess we're on Tuesday, so it was yesterday. It's been a long week already, Patrick. But no, I said this yesterday. I was waiting for Karl-Anthony Towns to be playoff Karl-Anthony Towns, and last night he was playoff Karl-Anthony Towns. So, that's kind of the big thing for the Knicks that I'm going to look at throughout this entire playoff run is what can they get out of him consistently to complement Jalen Brunson and these other guys that they have on the roster, because he's such a huge part of what they do. You need him to have a big game. Here he didn't, and they fell flat. So not really surprised to see that in the least.
No, and then we see the Clippers get a 105-102 win over the Nuggets. I mean, this, again, it's going to be series tied 1-1. Both these games have come down to it. The last one was overtime. This one came down to last-second shots. I will say it probably would have helped for Denver to have a coach they could have trusted down the stretch, because they took some god-awful shots there at the end to try and tie this game. They were basically just throwing them at the basket. They missed the rim twice on their last 2 shots. To tell you how good the shot selection was. They missed the rim on both those threes to tie the game at the end. And Kawhi Leonard, I don't like Kawhi Leonard personally because I'm a Spurs fan, and the way he's treated. I hate the whole Uncle Dennis thing where he pretended that there was an uncle that was making him make all these decisions, and he did everything in the middle of the night the way he wanted to. But man, you're not supposed to be able to not play and stay that good. Like, it's supposed to eventually, you miss games and then you'll get worse. He had 39 points on 19 shots.
Yeah, I mean
that's really, really good. I mean, James Harden took 17 shots. He had 18 points. It's much more of a James Harden line. James Harden took a lot of shots, and he didn't get to the free throw line, and he wasn't as effective. But Kawhi Leonard, just a beast out there, and that is also one of the best defensive players in the league as well. He can really stop guys down. He was at the end of the game. Jokic had an open 3, and Leonard closed out on him fast enough, and Jokic, respecting Kawhi Leonard, didn't take the 3 that he probably still should have taken, but he didn't know if Kawhi was going to be able to get a finger on it. And so, like, when you're able to do those types of things, it puts you in a different light. If he's able to stay healthy during this playoff run, the Clippers will stay alive. It's James Harden has to show up more. He has to continue to be a good player. We know that he's disappeared at points in the playoffs as well. He has not been the most clutch. Denver is, when they get in transition, when they're playing fun basketball and they're just able to play a more street ball style because they don't have a coach yelling at them right now, and they're able to just go and play and do what they want to do, they're playing really, really good. The problem is down the stretch when things need to tighten up a little bit more and the turnovers are starting to get a little bit more of a problem. You have to be able to figure those things out. They had 20 turnovers in the game. The Clippers also had 19, but the 20 turnovers, those types of things, they're thoroughly out rebounding the Clippers right now. They're playing good enough basketball to win, but they're not winning in outstanding fashion because they're just making so many mistakes.
Yeah, I mean, Jokic himself had 7 turnovers last night, so that's not something you really want to see. But man, Kawhi Leonard is an absolute freak. Like, I don't know how he does things like this. I struggle to imagine what his career would look like if he was consistently healthy through the entire thing.
Yeah.
It's bonkers to me how he can just take time off and then come back and put up 39 points on 19 shots and win a game where James Harden has less than 20 and doesn't go to the free throw line. Like, that's wild to me. I don't know how he does it, but
no.
At the same time, I don't expect him to stay healthy through the entire playoff run, just based on his history. We'll see what happens. This is going to be a really, really fun series to watch regardless, just because of all the different dynamics to it. I think the first 2 games are a pretty good indicator of that, as we've seen. Yes. But I want the Nuggets to extend this as long as they possibly can, just to spite their ownership. I know they're going to make more money going further in the playoffs, but you fired our coach. We're still going to go out there and we're still going to do this, that, and the other. And, Jokic is going to put up another triple-double and all this stuff. But it's just been a really fun series, and I'm looking forward to watching the next one for sure.
Bucks and Pacers tonight. That'll be an interesting one. Damian Lillard does return record time coming back from a blood clot. All the stuff about that, and it's really cool how the science of that has come around, where now they're actually looking out for it to make sure people are a little bit safer. But they've also said, because we're looking for it now, we can detect it pretty early, and we detected it early enough that it was really not a problem to get rid of it. And he's already back playing, so he'll be back tonight against the Pacers, which they need because they got boat raced by the Pacers in game 1. Kyle Kuzma had that big line of 0-0-0-0-0-0-0-0. So maybe he'll be able to step that one up. We also get a Grizzlies Thunders game tonight that is going to be fun because the Thunder may put up another 140 points on this Grizzlies team that fired their coach as well. And the Grizzlies, I'm just curious what they show back up with. What do you do after that game? Do you have the leadership on that team to not completely fall apart? Or is this literally like John Morant doesn't play the last game because he's just screw it, I hate this team? Does this team completely implode, or do they form together? This will be a big test to see what they can do, because if they get blown out by 30 points again, they got blown out by 50 last game. They get blown out by 30, who knows?
Man, I really wish that it was the Mavericks in this situation rather than the Grizzlies getting blown out by 55 points. I'll say that. It's going to be brutal. Oklahoma City is just playing really, really, really good basketball right now. SGA is the most annoying basketball player to watch on the planet, but he's really good at what he does, and that's why he's the driving force of what this team does and why they're so good. So, it'll be a sweep. I think it'll be an easy sweep. I think that they should put a mercy rule in the NBA so that stuff like the game one doesn't happen. But it is what it is. I want this series to set a record, Patrick. The biggest point differential on average for a series in NBA history.
I will say the TNT should have NBA TV should have pulled TNT should have pulled rank and been like, we want the Bucks Pacers game. The NBA TV can have the other one. No one wants to watch this. Put that one over on NBA TV. And then we get the game 2 of Timberwolves Lakers. Anthony Edwards was fined $50,000 today for telling some fans that his wiener was bigger than theirs. He was also seen in the locker room afterwards talking about after they beat the Lakers, now all the girls are going to love us. Really not caring about being the face of the NBA was Anthony Edwards during this game. But this is the big one for LeBron and Luka. Can they put it together? Because if they go down 2-0 to this Timberwolves team, and I know, the Timberwolves are a good team. Anthony Edwards is a good player, but come on, you can't go down 2-0 when everybody's thinking y'all are going to put it together and you got over the hump. But if they just go inside and Naz Reid and there's no chance for them, it's going to be tough.
Yeah. Bo Nix, iPhone 6, Betty Crocker cake mix, Lakers in 5. Thank you, Ash. I think the Lakers are going to bounce back here. I really do. I think JJ Redick took one on the chin in game 1. And he's going to button some things up. He's a real smart guy. Luka is going to keep doing Luka. LeBron needs to be better than he was in game 1. He can't have 19 points. If they're going to win, he can't play a Robin role. They've got to both be really out there doing good stuff. So I think that they're going to put it together. I'm a little less confident in them winning every series in 5 games going forward for the rest of the playoffs. But, I'll be cheering for him because F the Mavericks and go Luka.
There you go. All right, let's get to our meathead of the day. Meathead of the day is Pat McAfee because he got roasted like this on his own show. I told you WrestleMania weekend was last weekend, and they did the Monday show from WrestleMania in Vegas, and they had Paul Heyman, which is one of the best talkers in wrestling, go on his show, and he just lit up Pat McAfee. And Paul Heyman's a bad guy, and he leaned into the character, and this stuff is just so much fun to watch.
Do you care about the opinions of people who are irrelevant? You don't care about the opinions of most people who are very relevant in your life. You don't care about the opinions of the people who pay you. They sit there and they go, hey, Mr. McAfee, don't talk about Shannon Sharp on the air today. And you go, I talk about anything I want. I'm Pat McAfee. Right. Watch me swing my schlong all over the place. They go, McAfee, don't talk about your podcast on the air. What do? I'm King Schlong. Okay, watch me, Pat McAfee. Right?
This is on you. This is about you, not me. Accurate stuff.
Right?
Accurate stuff.
I mean, come on. Hey, last night when the roast was over and you and I were out back and you're going, wise man. By the way, it's puff, puff, pass, not puff, 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 chase down the gummy, puff, 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 pass, right? And you go, wise man. Stephen A. Smith really sucks, right? And I go, I love Stephen A. The man calls me the GOAT. The man, Stephen A. Smith, is on the air saying, if there's one person in the universe that I, Stephen A. Smith, at $70 billion a year want to be, it's the wise man Paul Heyman. And you sit there and you go, these ESPN bastards give me the same money as him, or they can.
No, that's not true. None of that's true.
There's Paul Heyman.
Oh, wow.
The wise man Paul Heyman going after Pat McAfee on his own show. That was some great stuff there. That if this is why you love wrestling, is because that's the people that are involved in it, and just watching him walk over Pat McAfee, which Pat McAfee does an announcer in wrestling, which is why he was out there, and it's getting lit up. A lot of people. John Cena called him out for being high too much as well this weekend, because he said to John Cena, Pat McAfee said, "It didn't look like you lost a step," and he goes, "Yeah, but you're always high, so how do you know?"
Yeah, man. I mean, that was brutal. I did not expect that at all. McAfee was just red in the face with embarrassment and just getting roasted, which I'm sure he's not used to. That was some epic stuff. Maybe he really is the GOAT. I've seen that clip of him in the past where he's like, "Yes, I'm the GOAT, undisputed." Like, now I get it. Now I see. No,
he's really, really good at what he does, and he's been doing it for a long time. He at WrestleMania screwed over two guys. He had two friends in the match, and he screwed them both over to help out the third guy in the match. It was really good stuff. It was really compelling television. So it was a lot of fun. We ran out of time, so we'll get into some more draft talk tomorrow. Get into some of the stuff we didn't get into today as we get one day closer to the NFL draft. We'll also have the midweek movie review with Moneyball, which I still have to watch. We'll get into that tomorrow as well as we continue on our week here on Open Gym. But from myself, Patrick Davis, and Matt Galatzan from Texas Longhorns on SI, reminder to be safe, be kind, keep your underwear clean, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow for more from Open.